opening item A2, Pledge of Allegiance. Could everyone please stand? And the flag is right here. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. First item on our agenda is item A3, tenure approval. Tenure is a very important accomplishment in New York State, where our instructional staff have a designation of permanency here in our district, and we do have one tenure approval item this evening. Can I turn the meeting over to you, Dr. Macaluso, to introduce our tenure approval for the evening?
Good evening, trustees. Good evening, community. It is my pleasure to present to the trustees and to the community the tenure recommendation for Miss Evelina Rodriguez, who is here in the audience. She is a speech teacher with our youngest babies at ECP. I know I've had a chance to watch her provide instruction on numerous occasions, and certainly she is here for our students, meeting them where their needs are and helping them to grow in their language development. And so with that, we are pleased to present her and for your consideration for tenure.
Thank you. Can I get a motion, please?
I move that we accept the tenure item presented to the board for approval this evening.
Second.
It's been properly moved in second. Can we poll the board, please, Ms. Christine?
Yes.
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 Yes. So it looks like this motion has been approved and you now have tenure. Thank you. Can I ask that you come up and at least shake the hands and meet the board members? And if we have a mic, I would love to hear from her. Do we have a? Great, thank you.
It has been a pleasure servicing my little falcons in the district. I've been working in the past as an independent contractor with the little students, and this is my passion. This is what I chose as a 17-year-old Evelina Rodriguez in Argentina, and till today, this is what I love doing, and I love helping my students, meeting with where they are, and just helping them progress, like step by step, you know. Whatever they need, I'm there for them.
Thank you so much. I'd love for you to come around and shake our hands, and thank you for the service to our district.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much, Ms. Rodriguez. And next on our agenda is the lead, and by the way, we're celebrating you today. I see your children and your family are here, so congratulations to mom and to wife. And we will have a much larger tenure celebration at the end of the school year for all of our tenured staff. We would love for you to come back and celebrate with us. We had food and everything, so it'll be wonderful, okay? Thank you so much. Congratulations to mommy. She does a really good job with her students, so thank you for letting us borrow her for a little bit of time. Next on our agenda, item B1, which is the Lee F. Jackson Elementary School presentation. If you check our updated agenda, we have rescheduled that due to weather. After that, we have our strategic plan discussion. If you recall, the board embarked on a strategic planning creation project where we involved all of the community, all of the staff. We received feedback. We went through several drafts and iterations of the strategic plan, and now we're on draft 7, and the full board is finally working through that. We've talked through it for the last 2 meetings. Board members, we're now on page 17. Since there's so many iterations, I want to remind the board that we're on the draft that is draft number 7 from January 27th, 2023. So we can move from there. I'll give people a minute to find it. I'm going to pull it up online as well. If I could open online. So January 27th, we have a board packet, and it should be in there. Here we are. We left off page 17, strategic objective number 3, which is to create and this is under climate goal number, safe and healthy climate and culture. Strategic objective number 3 is to create a welcoming and affirming environment. The key action plans are to standardize emergency protocols to ensure each building is safe, inviting, and welcoming. Review and revise district and building emergency safety plans annually. Conduct an audit of district and building evacuations procedures and emergencies plans. Improve staff interaction with the public. Conduct an annual audit of district and building evacuation procedures and emergency plans. I heard Dr. Iverson said that twice, so one of those, I guess, is going to be deleted. Ensure professional development opportunities for staff on an school emergency basis. Excuse me, where did I get that word? Ensure professional development opportunities for staff on a school emergency plans. Secure signs, posters, and information boards for inside the buildings. Update district and building level emergency plan. Identify a universal emergency communication app for use by all district staff for reporting. See something for use by all district staff for reporting. See something. To peacefully coexist is fine, but I'm wondering, when kids don't peacefully coexist, it's usually because they have some sort of need that they need to know how to express themselves when they're stressed out, or conflict resolution of some sort. I don't see that in there, but maybe it's coming. Conduct annual town hall format community safety meetings at the high school. Yes, Trustee Washington?
I was going to say, it says at the high school, but it should be district-wide.
Trustee Warner, were you going to say something too? I heard you move, but...
I said tomorrow night.
Tomorrow night. Okay, so tomorrow night is again district-wide. So is there a reason for the committee? So again, the committee was a smaller group of board members that kind of did all these drafts. So was there a reason why this is at the high school monthly and not district-wide?
The board and to do this, and so we listed it as one of our key actions because we knew that was coming. So I think that is referring to tomorrow, but so that's why it was specific to the high school.
Okay, great, thank you. And Trustee Washington, Valen?
I think in our smaller committee, it was not intended to be specifically for the high school either. It was supposed to be district-wide. I think we were trying to avoid confusion when we call it a town hall meeting. We wanted to make sure people didn't think it was at town hall. We should maybe just say conduct regular safety meetings with the GCSD community, and leave the where open. But that was the intention, district safety issues.
So was the intention to have district-wide meetings on safety monthly? Because under the 23-24 column, I saw annually, then that's crossed out. It says monthly, but in the key action plan, it says annual. So what, yes, Trustee Valen?
I don't know what the intention was, but just for discussion now, I would suggest that we leave it kind of nebulous. It could be building level, it could be in conjunction with PTAs, it could be a district-wide meeting that we organize after a specific, if we have an audit done on the district-wide area. I think just the fact that we should hold them regularly and that it would cover all the district in some form or another, but as far as how we want to word it, for discussion.
I agree. I think it would be a little bit of overkill to have it at the same place every month for an entire year. You could migrate it from school to school if you wanted to do more than one per year. Just regular, not necessarily monthly.
Right. We had so many discussions and iterations around this plan. And I just remember as part of that discussion, true, the point you're making, Trustee Valen and Trustee Warner, but we certainly wanted the strategic plan to document the efforts we did this year. So we probably need to add another statement that speaks to district-wide. We can certainly edit that and add, but I think we would be remiss not to account in this strategic plan for this year, since it's listed as part of the year, this year, 22-23, the efforts that we have done this calendar year around safety and culminating to some degree in this town hall at the high school. So I think would we agree maybe adding an additional statement? I just want to make sure we document what's happening this year.
Trustee Washington?
So first, do we want to answer Dr. Iverson's question first, and then before I go on?
I don't know if anyone has a...
No, go
Yes,
ahead.
Trustee Valen? Did you have an answer?
Well, I'm not sure if an additional action plan needs to be noted, maybe just in the column for 22-23, it's something that will have occurred.
Yeah, and that's what I think we missed putting in there. I think that's what I was saying. We forgot to list that in that column to indicate that action was being done this year.
So in reference to the town hall format, community safety meetings, can you just kind of give me a quick purpose? I mean, I understand the word safety, I understand the word town hall and community, but what is the end product? What do we want to get out of that?
So that goes back to my point. The end product of what we were going to do this year was to provide the community with the results of the audit. That's why my initial thinking, and I'm glad the other members are here to correct, to remember, because we had so many discussions, that was the purpose, to finish the promise that we made to the community to get back to them at the results of this audit. So maybe Trustee Warner and Trustee Valen can remember the purpose of one annually. I don't quite remember our discussion around that. I remember us talking about documenting this one for tomorrow, and that purpose is to do just what it's going to do.
Well, there's the obvious thing that it's an extra reinforcement of what do you do in an emergency situation. So there'll be policies and procedures and things that we expect to have happen. Okay, so an emergency happens at my child's school. How will I be kept informed? When do I go get my kid? Do I not go get my kid? What are the policies?
Okay.
Also, you have feedback. So if people say, I'm concerned about this, that, or the other safety issue, there's a forum in which you have experts assembled in front of you and you say, these are the things I'm concerned about. We need to work on this.
Okay.
So, two pieces.
Two
Okay.
pieces. That's my point. I think there are two pieces here.
So I'm thinking biannually, not monthly, because that's just doesn't seem feasible. And it would be nice if you did it one time and then changing the mindsets of the parents, students, and staff to promote proactiveness against certain things happening. I don't know if that fits in there or if it's just too much, but go ahead, Drew.
If I may, picking up off of that, one of the elements of this part of the strategic plan in the early discussion was not just about the safety, but was about culture and about, I see it in the very first action plan under Objective 3, inviting and welcoming. But I don't see it in the measures, and I wonder if there's something, there was discussion about having staff available that could speak the language of a family that they speak at home. There was about planting flowers in the flower beds so as people come up that it's inviting visually. There was an aspect of it that was larger than just safety. Yeah.
Because if we build a culture, a positive and welcoming culture, we're hoping, right? Our hope is that people will interact in a more positive way, because I remember us having conversation about helping our students to look at other people's perspectives, but then also being able to identify themselves, right? See themselves through the school, but then look through that window that I see someone else as a benefit to me, right? As an enhancement to me and my culture, not, because we were talking about a lot of students like downing other people, belittling other people because they weren't of the same culture or race. So I remember us having that conversation, I don't know where, but maybe that was at the retreat, I'm not sure. But we were talking about trying to also bring that type of climate to the district. So when I look at identify and implement a bullying and social skills, so I just want to also use from the word bullying, I wonder if we can change that word, because that is too specific, and as soon as people hear bullying, they think everything is bullying. So I'm just wondering if we can kind of figure out, I like the fact that we're going towards restorative practices. So I'm just wondering if that word, I don't know, you guys can talk about it later, do we really need to have that as like the first word under that key action?
Yeah, that
I like
paragraph.
conflict resolution, peer mediation, restorative practice. Second step, is that still a program that we use here? Because that's
We don't use it at all here, actually.
well,
but
it's a program that
SEL
we have
program.
binders for.
We do have second step, Dr. Macaluso can answer that, but we do have second step in some schools. It's just, this action is making it more universal now, but you want to speak to it?
Here?
Second step is currently being used at Leah,
Yeah, you got to turn it on. Okay.
is currently being used at Leah Jackson.
When did that start?
It's been in place.
Oh, I didn't, okay.
So
I'm in
second
sti-
step was in the
okay.
district prior, but like I said, there were binders in offices, but it wasn't something universal. And I guess I'm just wondering, is the latest research behind second step? Is there like, and I'm putting you on the spot, but just
Right.
wondering, right? So is there another program that would benefit us, especially who we are as Greenberg and our diversity and our demographics? Second step kind of took a step out, or is it still vital and it's still a program that we could use?
So I can answer that question, and actually it has emerged as one of the top recommended resources for K-6 from the SEL committee that we have in place. So we are looking at moving forward next year with expanding that because it is, like as I mentioned, it is at Jackson, and we would like to expand it up to the 6th grade, which would be Highview and Bailey.
And they have the latest research on the second step?
Absolutely.
Okay. So if we could just get some of that, that would be really great, like in a packet, just
On
so we
second
could.
step?
Noted. Okay.
Yeah.
So do, Dr. Iverson and Dr. Macaluso, the word bullying, do you not feel what I feel? What do you think? What's your thinking behind that?
I think it puts a stake in the ground. Bullying is a very real issue nationally, across the state, everywhere. And, I think I get a lot of calls. You get a lot of calls, a lot of concerns. Some of them, we've seen some examples. I think we are stating in this plan, when we mention the word bullying, we're sending a message to the community and our parents that we are addressing it head on. Without mentioning it, I don't want it to get buried in the language, and it's not clear to the community that we're addressing it. Because let me tell you some things about the programs. For example, and Dr. Macaluso said experience with Second Step, and so have I in our previous experiences, one of the top-level research programs, and here we'll get the research for you, in terms of teaching the skills that we are talking about right here, through actual vignettes and skits where children actually are in groups, in circles, they get to dialogue around a script or a little skit that's developmentally appropriate for that grade, that teaches implicitly bullying, making better decisions. How did you resolve that conflict? And say it could be a playground incident, it could be anywhere in the cafeteria, but it's appropriate to what those children at that level experience. And so the vignettes and the little skits, they are acting out these skits and intrinsically learning these skills. And then there's a kit per grade. So what is happening at Jackson? They're not using it with the fidelity. They're using pieces of it. So the way that it works with fidelity, you should have a kit per grade. And then there's one person, usually your guidance counselor, your social worker, your psychologist, and they're the ones who you spend 20 minutes and you have a schedule developed, and they weekly are in classes. Teachers remain, because while they're doing the skits and teaching this, and it touches the kids actually are now, it's getting down to the kids, which we've said we want to see. And so this counselor is in there, and she has the cards, they have props. I mean, it's really hands-on. Kids are in circles and they're acting this out. It's a 20-minute lesson. You get it 1 day a week or 5 days a week, depending on how the school schedules it. So all of the first grade will get it from the guidance counselor. Then there's a second grade kid. So can you imagine this? By the time they leave that building, the skills are developmental, because as they continue to grow, third grade skill is a little bit different, a little more, but building on those skills. What happens automatically? You will hear it. And you speak to culture. The culture will change because everyone will be speaking the language. And teachers are in the class. They don't teach it. We don't give it to our teachers. We don't give them another thing to do. But they're in the room. It's not a free period. They are part of those lessons, so they get to use it when the counselor or the psychologist, whoever is doing the lessons, leaves, so they can continue using the language throughout the day when they have two kids having a little conflict. So it's a sustainability program. So I do think, Trustee, I hear your point seriously. We put it here because we want to address it head on. But certainly we can look at another word, if that's the will, and move it further in if you like. I just want you to, we put it right there for that reason.
Trustee Vallon?
Well, a couple of things, because I love the fact that we're doing role playing, because I think kids learn better when you show them what they can do instead of telling them what they can't do, which goes back to Trustee Washington's point. This isn't exactly what you were saying, so forgive me if I'm misinterpreting, but I don't like the word anti-bullying or don't be a bully, because that just goes over people's heads. I much prefer we're showing them how to be a good friend. We're showing them social skills. We're showing them character traits they should encompass. So I go for the positive, because that's what kids need. What should I do instead of what shouldn't I do? Nomenclature. At the end of the day, we're doing the same thing, and it sounds like we're on the right track to implementing a great program with Fidelity. Going to just button up the issue on the community safety meetings as far as the wording. I'm going to say something like conduct annual community safety meetings. And I'm thinking, I agree with Trustee Washington. I think twice a year is great. I think part of the issue we heard earlier in the year was parents said there's all this safety information out there. It's written, or it's on the website. It's difficult to find. It's on the calendar as far as what the steps are. So giving that to them verbally and enabling a Q&A session, I think we need at the beginning of the year, and then possibly somewhere mid-year as events arise. And again, that can be whether it's back to school night or, you know, how it's done doesn't need to be in the plan. I just think we need to generalize it. It needs to be at every school, because there's different procedures at every school and different questions will arise. Okay. So making that a little more generic, I think, will help. And then going up to the item, identify a universal emergency communication app. I think at one point we discussed changing that to either changing that word identify to implement or identify and implement, because identifying it's great, it's actually putting it into good use. I also want to point out the description here says, for reporting, see something, say something. We do currently have an anonymous reporting tool that's available on the website. I think there's a QR code you could also go to. I believe, and if you could clarify for me, I think this item is supposed to be when there is an emergency, how is staff communicating during the emergency? If that's what this is supposed to be addressing, then maybe the description should specify that more clearly, because the see something, say something is different than totally different, how are we communicating during the emergency.
Yeah, so maybe it needs to be something that's right, it's two separate sentences. So the during the emergency app, identify and implement, that's during the crisis. And then the see something, say something, or anonymous alerts is a separate before a crisis happens, or I saw a crisis already happen, right? That's what you're saying? It's two separate things? So Dr. Iverson, I don't know what the second sentence would be, but it would be separate. You know what I mean?
So from my understanding, this Trustee Pineda added this, and this app is just that. You don't necessarily have to be in crisis. It's if I'm in my building, and everyone will have it downloaded somewhere. We haven't decided how. But if you anywhere and see someone walking on the grounds outside, while you're walking down the hall, you have an app on your phone to be able to identify some kind of way to the office. It's not necessarily always, it's a crisis app, but you don't only use it during a crisis.
So how do we specify the two
That's why it says
different
see
levels?
something, say something. Just,
So how do we implement it or identify the two different levels? One is very different.
Right.
What Trustee Valen described was during a crisis, the communication app or plan, or whether it's walkie-talkies or an app, however, is communicated while in the crisis.
and this app is used for that as well. It's for all of that. It's a way to communicate to all teachers in the building. It's a way the principal can get messages out to move to a procedure. It's a crisis app for all inclusive. It does both.
Okay, so we're going to change the sentence to used by all district staff for communication during
Okay,
a crisis and for reporting
all right,
concerns or whatever, and then see something, say something.
okay. Okay, got it.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Did you want to finish?
Yeah, I was going to ask if we need a, because I heard what you said earlier. I feel like, is that a separate sentence of changing the mindsets of our student and staff and actually meeting with our students and staff? We're talking about a community meeting biannually, which is kind of, I feel like that's everyone's in agreement on, but the second piece of that was following up with meetings with our actual students of all levels, from ECP all the way up through the high school, and finding out, do you feel safe? What are the things that we need to do to help you to feel safe? These are the procedures, you go through these drills, but as a group in a town hall type building community meeting, let's talk about these procedures. Do they work for you? Why or why not? Why did we have an issue with talking during a lockdown or whatever it be, and meet with the students and get feedback from them? Do we want to have something like that? I think that's what I heard the suggestion, hearing directly from the students. Trustee Warner?
Okay, so I'm thinking here that I want to shift back to a comment that was made much earlier on this whole goal, where we said create a welcoming and affirming environment. And I know we have all these programs listed underneath that teach us to get along better with each other. I'm not sure, are we covering everything? Do those programs include the things that you would do in a positive fashion to create a welcoming and affirming environment? So say, for example, we had a program at the high school for a while where you develop a relationship with a trusted adult. And we would have an activity monthly in which a group of kids would get together with whatever that adult would be. And at first it was icebreakers, and then eventually you got to the point which you could confide if you had any issues with that adult, and you had a relationship with that adult before anything bad would happen. So so that's part of positively creating a welcoming and affirming environment. So do we have anything in the plan there that says that things like that should be in place?
But these programs will do that. That's what results when these programs are in place.
Okay, so one of those programs is that.
All of these programs create a positive environment
So
in
I
school.
guess,
So when we implement second step, if you have something on conflict, all of these will create that positive and welcoming environment, because all of them are teaching everyone, all from teachers to the students, the language around that. So it happens as the result of it. We can add that language. I just want you to know the whole purpose of these programs is to do just that, not only help our students, because when students behave better and everyone is happier and everyone's getting along, what happens is that positive environment. So it does, like PBIS is a program that everyone has heard of, Positive Behavior Intervention Support.
Yes.
A lot of states have that. That is focused on positive language. So it's focused on everyone in the building using the opposite of, why did you do that? Or to, I like the way you did that. Thank you for doing that, Linda. So they learn to just begin to turn language around and recognize the positive. So that's another program that does the very same thing. All of these programs will create a positive environment. But we can certainly add that. I'm not opposed to it. I just want you to know we specifically listed programs that will, I think, create that welcoming environment that we stated in the action.
Okay, so your answer is yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Trustee Washington?
so I would like us to Dr. Iverson, can you tell the board and the community that each and every program that is listed here, we are going to do with fidelity? Because if we are, I think we just approved restorative practices, correct?
Yes.
So are we going to get behind restorative practices as a district? Are we going to get behind PBIS? I'm hearing we're going to get behind Second Step. And then there's peer mediation, which I think is great. Character education seems like it is Second Step. So who are we? And I don't want us to come off, I'm going to use a layman term as like, I don't want to offend anyone, but I don't want us to have like schizophrenia within our practices. So I'm just wondering, who are we?
Okay, yes. So these were examples. It
Oh,
says
just examples.
IE. All of these are examples
Okay.
of programs. We just listed all that are out there. I do
Okay.
know we have committed to restorative practice and justice and Second Step.
Okay.
So those are the two that with fidelity we're going to implement next
Okay,
year.
thank you. All right, so that helps me. If we could maybe say who we are, and this is what we commit to as our strategic plan, but these are examples. And then my last question, I guess I'm looking at the timeline, and it concerns me that we have 2024, we're still going to identify a bullying program, because it keeps saying annually, annually, annually. And then, unless I'm reading it wrong, and someone can tell me.
No, so 23-24, we're going to implement, for example, restorative practice all next fall. As the board approved last agenda, that training starting for that team of 45 people this spring. We will roll it out next fall. It will be part of the superintendent conference day, and will be part of the other days in the calendar that we have professional development. I will work with Dr. Macaluso to work on how that looks. So that statement says by the end of 23-24, restorative practice is going to be fully implemented. It's a measurement.
Fall 2023.
By the fall, will be fully implemented. Yes, we are going to be implementing it fully next year. So that's what that is saying.
I'm sorry.
So we're taking out identify bullying program, because that's what you're talking about, right?
No, the 2024, 2025, 2025, 2026.
Right.
It just says annually.
Annually.
So that means, I just want to know if there is, because it keeps saying identify
Right.
bullying program annually. That's
Okay.
not truly what we're doing annually.
Bullying.
Right, we're doing training, I don't know.
Right.
And then it says fully
Yeah.
implemented, but it's not fully because that's one cohort.
Right.
And it might have, 2024, you might have a third
The second
cohort
and
or a
third, yeah.
fourth cohort that's going to receive training. And then for 2023, by fall 2023, identify district-wide crisis app. And then there's nothing else after that. And I'm wondering also, do we have a district-wide crisis team?
So every building, I'll let Lisa Raymond answer that, but every district, every building has
Every
a
building,
crisis
but do we
team.
have a district-wide team?
We have an emergency response team, I believe. What happened to?
Okay, I was just wondering if that's something that can help also.
So the building, thank you, Trustee Washington, because the building level teams haven't all been included with a parent. So those teams are supposed to have parents on them. How do we make sure that's happening? Dr. Iverson, Ms. Raymond, how do we make sure that parents are included on the building level safety or emergency team?
That is done by the principals.
So who's checking in with them to make sure that that's happening every single month and that parents are included in that meeting?
But those teams, Lisa, Ms. Raymond, those teams, we get the state gives us some guidelines on who should be on the roles and should be on the team.
Gives us guidelines on who's on the district-wide team.
Okay.
And each school has a list of who should be on their team. And each principal designates or asks parents and has staff that's on it.
Okay.
So who's checking to make sure those are happening every month and having a parent on that team?
Those meetings are not happening right now every month.
Okay.
So as what's come out of the audit, that was one of the things that,
Okay.
remember? So moving forward, that, and starting from the rest of the year, they're beginning to do that. That was, but they were not in true transparency happening this year.
So safety monthly?
So every principal is holding a crisis. Lisa, is Ms. Raymond, is this correct? Can you speak to that?
I want to get the proper name, because I
Yes,
feel like
what
I'm
is it
calling it
called?
crisis, emergency, safety. I want to get the proper name to call that.
Each,
And then,
is this on? Each school has a school safety team.
thank you, okay.
School safety.
Monthly school safety team with parents.
I'm not but they're not meeting monthly. That
Right.
that came out.
But that's
in the
gonna start.
audit, and that's what's going to start, correct?
Okay.
And Dr. Miraglia's team was going to work individually with all of the schools to teach them exactly what it was they should be doing, what they should be addressing, and actually walking through with the team.
Okay, wonderful. I guess we'll hear more about that tomorrow
And maybe
night.
that could be part of our plan. Right, it has to be measured, right?
And I just want to wrap up and get an answer from everyone about whether or not we want to have, because I thought I heard something different than I heard your question, Trustee Warner, whether or not these programs are going to get feedback from students and make sure students have a relationship with someone. That's important. But what I heard, I thought in the question was whether or not we're going to have building level community meetings with the students in each building to talk about and get a group feedback on safety and security culture as well. So that's a question. I'm not hearing kind of an answer on that. Are we going to try to do that, or are we only leaving it to the community and the parents?
I just think that gets really, I hear the point, but again, remember, a strategic plan is the framework of what we are saying we want to see done. How that's done, we leave up to the individual, in this case, schools or whomever is responsible for that area. I don't think we go that deep in this document to say that. We're saying here we want the principals to hold and conduct community monthly, or I think I heard monthly community and safety meetings.
So do we want to include the students? Do we want to say have principals conduct students as well as safety meetings? Do we want to hear student voice in the meeting?
I think there's student voice in other sections of this plan.
Okay, great.
So
Is anyone?
there will be opportunities for students to have voice. I mean, I'm not saying I'm opposed to it, but I know the plan does speak to student voice and giving students plenty of opportunities to have voice.
I would say that the ability of students to participate in this increases as the students go up in grade level. So by the time you get to the high school, the students can have pretty strong opinions for how things can work and make cogent, reasoned arguments as to, what things should be done to improve safety and security. But if you ask a kindergartner, that's not going to work very well.
See,
So there's going to be a little graduation of what happens depending on the age level of the student.
I hear you, but, and I don't have a kindergartner anymore, but we've all had kindergartners. But I can tell you at the elementary school where my son is, there are, and I know you've all read about it, some things happening with destruction to property. That's a very clear conversation that can be had with second and third graders about their culture and their school environment and community. And how do we want our school environment and community to be had? Now, the parents in that building received an email talking about the destruction of property. I'm sure in each individual class they had a conversation. But had they have biannual community meetings, and in the past there were incidents of, just bathroom behaviors, people not being very clean, people kind of congregating at the elementary level, because kids are kids and they want to have fun, and we've had them on the internet watching, I guess, congregating in the bathroom. And so this is happening even at our elementary school level. So I actually would think that kindergartners might have some feedback if they're asked about how they want their climate and culture to be in their building. I actually do think they would have feedback. Now, it may sound more adult-like in the high school, definitely, and we may get into more security issues in the high school because they're older and they process differently. But I actually would want a principal to meet with the entire student community at an assembly, maybe either in the gym or auditorium if the building has one, and talk with the students about the climate and culture in that school. And I'd like to hear from every trustee, because I'm kind of adamant about this, that our students need to be heard and that they need to have, even in my family, I have family meetings. I ask the children, what do you think needs to improve in the family? You know, you're not cleaning your room. What do you think needs to change or needs to happen differently to improve the culture of the home? And I think we can do that as well in the school. So I'd love to hear, you know, now that I've talked a lot, I'd love to hear from the trustees about that. What do you think about hearing student input?
I think the input you will get will be different depending on the age level of the student. I'll say that.
I agree.
I'm not going to forbid students to communicate.
Trustee Long, what do you think about what I was suggesting about a possibly biannual student community meeting, maybe run by the principal, where they hear back from the students about the culture and climate of their building?
I agree. Students' assemblies, I'm not sure that how this fits in here. I guess I understood, Dr. Iverson, it's all in here already, but yeah, obviously students should have a voice.
Wonderful. The way it would fit in there, the same way that we have conduct town hall format for community, would be town hall format for students. So if we don't need to have it for students, we don't need to have it for community because it's all inclusive. But I think if we've identified it for the community, why can't we identify it for our students and have them be heard? Trustee Washington, I'd love to hear your feedback.
So I think this goes along with the culturally responsive sustaining education framework for New York State, and it speaks about empowering student voices. And I think at any time that we can hear from our students, we should. And the reason why it should go into the strategic plan is basically it shows uniformity. It tells the community and the district and parents and other people that this is what we believe in, and we believe in our students, and we believe in their voices. So I think it aligns itself with the culturally responsive framework from New York State. I think due to the fact that we were very transparent to say that our buildings did not have safety meetings, and we are talking March, that we need to put certain things in place in our strategic plan, because then it becomes documented, and then no one can say, well, you never told me. I didn't know that. So I do believe that it should show itself within our plan.
Trustee Valen?
Ditto. I'll also I just want to clarify, the district-wide emergency plan committee and the building level safety plans all have to be reviewed by a certain committee and renewed. And the district level one presented to the public and approved by the board annually. The building level ones do not need that annual approval, but they do need to be submitted to NYSED. Correct so far? Okay. So as far as these regular meetings, that could, or you know, how you structure them, it could be separate from these annual review committees. Sorry, I'm going deep dive detail, Chris. So I'm just going to point out something that our council advised us earlier this year for answering another question, and that is that those building level emergency response teams, I'm going to quote here, the team must be appointed by the building principal in accordance with regulations or guidelines prescribed by the Board of Ed. Team shall include, but not be limited to, representatives of teacher, administrator, and parent organizations, school safety personnel, other school personnel, community members, local law enforcement officials, local ambulance, fire officials, or other emergency response agencies, and any other representatives the school board, chancellor, or other governing body deems appropriate. So it sounds like the majority of this board believes that students should be participating, whether in a generic feedback format or the official response team. I leave to the administration, but I do want student voice. I'm just showing the board can also require it.
Thank you, Trustee Valen, for finding that previous advice. So I'm interested in writing this in here. I was not part of your committee that met several times for several hours, but I wrote here mirroring the community, but conduct monthly town hall format with students and utilizing a culturally responsive framework. So hopefully that will be evident in the next draft. Due to time, let's continue to move on unless someone really wants to belabor this further. Okay. Conduct periodic check-ins with building administrators to ensure the schools have support mechanisms and personnel needed. Schedule time for articulation between the schools to allow teachers and staff to meet and plan for student success from school to school. Develop a systemic process for teachers to share student portfolios with a collection of academic and behavioral documents, artifacts of student work samples, and student assessments titled, "What Goes to Next Year's Teacher?" Meet with Greenburgh Police Department to revisit community school-based safety program of support. Explore employment options to work alongside of the administration, teachers, and staff to provide training and support to students and assist in building and improving the climate and culture in our schools for students for the remainder of the school year. That was a long sentence. Okay, does anyone have anything else to say regarding the climate and culture?
We should take that phrase for the remainder of the school year out, because we were trying to do something this year, remember, and with the position, and it didn't come through because it didn't come through. So we want to keep the language up to schools.
Okay, any feedback? Questions, concerns? No?
Well,
Okay,
only thing
yes.
I just have questions and concerns about the big blanks every time we go to years. So I'm just wondering what the plan, and if they can kind of spell out the plan for each year, because the word annually just comes up, and it's just very general. So that's just, my wonderings, and if there can be any more details.
I was for that one specifically, so...
No, not just that.
Oh, you
Not
don't mean
just that one. I was just, when you look at it, just like a lot of annually. And I don't want us to miss something because we didn't plan a year, years before. We just didn't plan. That's all I'm saying.
The intent, I hear you, but the intent of where we have annually was, I think thought process was, whatever that key action was, that was something that is done annually. So every year, at the end of the year, we will make sure we schedule, for this example, time for that articulation between schools so that teachers and staff can meet and plan for success for students who are moving up. So that's just an action that's done at the end of every year. And the measurement is, the measurement is just that. It was something done annually. So that was the intent of using the word annually. I can see how in some places it doesn't work, but that's what that...
Well, I guess I was just really thinking about the measurement of it, because just how are we going to measure that? How are we going to measure that the student portfolio, what goes to the next year's teachers? What are we, what are we going to have in place to ensure that K to 5 is done at this year, 6th through 7th are done? I'm just, I was just wondering. That's my wondering, like what's our plan, how it's going to actually be implemented? Or you're going to be like, because it's 2023 now, so I don't know, do you have a way that the students are going to have a portfolio for the teacher for 2023, 2024?
Are we beginning to talk about that? So let me just sort of address that. So the measurement is, we're going to do it. Every year, this is going to happen.
Okay.
And the measurement is going to be whether we did it or not.
Okay.
So we're going to be working with teachers now in the phrase, what goes to next year's teacher? We're beginning these discussions about what should be in a folder of documents and artifacts that teachers collect on students throughout the year, samples of student work, samples of assessments, any concerns the student had in terms of supports they received. So when I get that, and then it goes up, it's like the portfolio is a folder. It's not the CUME folder. That goes over too. That's a separate folder with the records. And this is a folder of artifacts and materials that are kept in the room by the classroom teacher. You probably have seen them, Trustee Washington, in a bin somewhere where students file samples of their work. Teacher will say, go put that in your folder, and they are collecting all throughout the year. That folder becomes very powerful when it moves to the next year's teacher because of all that documentation. So what goes to next year's teacher is samples of that type of thing. So when I get it, and if you bring me a new folder, kids on my roster, I get 20 new portfolios from various sections, classes. I get my class list. I have before that day, first day of school, I have a picture or have information about my students that I can begin planning appropriate instruction. So when it says develop a systematic process for teachers, it will be perhaps a form where we would give the teachers to say what should be in the portfolio, what should be sent to the next year's teacher. Just that simple, that they will collect, put in a binder, or folder, and it goes to next year's teacher, so that that articulation we're speaking about can happen. So if that helps.
No, it definitely does. I just don't want to put you like, I don't want you to be pigeonholed. So if you're starting it now and then...
Well, we're going to start it by the end of the year, yes.
Right, the implementation of the form, the implementation of having a committee of teachers with Dr. Macaluso creating the form, again, and then whatever year, how the teachers are being trained, what professional development or what time are we giving the teachers. All those things could be there, so at least you know for each year how you're really going to do it. I just don't want it to be so big and then the teachers get their portfolios and nothing really happens with them. So I'm just thinking that way too. So if you were to give yourself a plan of how you're going to do it, then if the board ever says to you, can you let us know how the portfolios are going in? Can you give us an example of data, or can you bring portfolios with the students' names off of it? You have this plan. Well, look, at 2023, I told you my committee's working on this, and that's all I was thinking about. That you had time to write different things down so you didn't feel like everything had to be done by June 2023.
My initial thoughts are, I've done this in several districts as a principal at every level where I was one. And it's not complicated. We have PLCs here in this district. We have been really strengthening that process, as you know. So we already have teacher leaders in place. So that would be the vehicle I will go through to get that feedback on what should be on that form. What is the information we should list that you think is really relevant for the next year's teachers to know, so that they have a jump start when they get those portfolios to begin to plan instruction. So and then I did a pink one and I did a blue one. And so, and just made it for the elementary levels. And then my teachers even used those colors to do the class list so they could see the balance of boys and girls. It's very creative, not that hard. It's just us. We don't have, I don't know if we have everywhere, because there is some articulation happening, but not consistently throughout the district, not at a systemic level. So we want to put this in place so that we now know it's happening everywhere. And so the measurement is it that goes over. You ask me, did that happen? I'm going to be able to say to you, yes, it did, or no, it didn't. And it's just that measurement. Now, the form will have on it what will go, and that was in the portfolio. And then your point too, so I get it now, teachers need time to look at it. So when Superintendent Conference Day, we start planning, we have some days we know for PD in there, we will give them time to go look at their folders as grade level and departments and begin to have those discussions among themselves as teachers around, and to begin to talk about the students who are coming into them. I have found that to be a very powerful practice, and it helps And teachers want that. They want to know. They come in, some of them even, when they get the class list, start contacting their students over the summer. But they want to know their students so that they don't come in cold. So this is a step we're going to put in place. And so if this is approved, we will work on how that's going to happen. But off the top of my head, it's just very simply like that.
Thank you, Trustee Valen.
Sorry for this one.
Sorry, Trustee Washington, were you done? Okay, thank you. Trustee Valen?
So two comments. One, hearing all that, which sounds great and sounds like it's formalizing some things that are happening a little bit haphazardly. I'm wondering, should that item be moved under student success? Because that seems more directly aligned with student success. I think it was initially here because we were trying to address how do we communicate different supports that need to be in place for students to succeed, not only educationally, but socially, emotionally. I think we were considering, besides the classified students who have IEPs and 504s, I think we were thinking of things like notes from teachers on this student is a kinetic learner, maybe having having the student perform more plays or skits or something would draw out the knowledge of the student. I think those were the kind of notes that we're here to help that student be successful, as well as just if they don't have like a formal, what is it, ABA, like different things in place as far as like scheduling or organizational skills that they might need help with, notes like that. Saying all that, I do think even if all of these items I'm naming get included here, I still think this probably does more properly belong under student success instead of...
I think the way Dr. Iverson explained it, but, you just talked about something very clear, so I think we need to have it in both places. I think there needs to be, the way Dr. Iverson explained it, under student success for year-to-year articulation, not just between buildings, but even within buildings. And then what you just talked about, I can tell you a situation where, I know personally of a child that does not have a formalized IEP or formalized support structures, but there are techniques and tools that are available that classroom teachers can use that may be used in 1 year and it is not communicated that next year. And then when the same behaviors or issues arise, if a parent can have the forethought to mention it, then the teacher may say, oh my goodness, I have all of these ideas, but it was not communicated between the teacher structure because of timing or whatever, but if we have these, that would be further communicated.
If I could just clarify, I'm glad you put it that way because we were very concerned. We want these to be support structures, ways to organize their education that will help them be successful. We were very conscious that we did not want this to be baggage that follows a child from grade to grade. That we do not want. That's all I'm going to say on that, but I hope...
Yeah, I wasn't talking about baggage. Did you think I was mentioning baggage? I'm talking about technique, like...
No, she was talking about, right, not to have someone like sit around and just, look at the child, and it hurts them more than it helps them.
Right, no, techniques.
So that comes along with changing the mindsets, of teachers and of staff.
And where do we have changing the mindsets of teachers and staff? I know we're not fully through the process, but where do we have, looking at a student more from a positive light? I did agree with Trustee Washington earlier when you talked about the word bullying, but we, I guess, are leaving that in. I don't think it should say bullying. I think it should talk about interacting with each other, communicating. I looked up the list of the IB traits, and that was all positive things, such as communicators, inquirers, risk takers, caring. So if you're doing those things, then you're not bullying. But if we label bullying, that's coming from a negative connotation. But whatever, we can, if no one else wants to take it out, I guess we'll leave it. But how do we identify these things from not just teacher, staff, administrator viewpoint of more of a positive, when you get a call from a parent, it's not, why is that parent calling me, oh my goodness, it's more from a positive lens, how can I help that parent? And it's different, how do we change that mindset? Where is that in here?
So I will bring the board's attention back to the framework, the culturally responsive framework from New York State that's deeply embedded all through this strategic plan. It's in the introduction section of the plan where I included a paragraph around how this plan is, the foundation of the plan was to assure that we looked at this framework through our actions, our structures, our processes comprehensively. And just kind of, if you will let me read right here, it says that we're including in this plan the four principles, the four grounding principles of the framework: welcoming and affirming environment, high expectations and rigorous instruction, inclusive curriculum and assessment, ongoing professional learning. Those are the four principles that foster positive academic outcomes for students and learners and teachers, and create positive cultures in our building. So
it's
there it is, right
welcoming
here.
and affirming environment.
It's right, yes, and I can.
Now, what are you looking at?
I'm looking at what I sent you many times a while back.
Well, I'm looking at the strategic plan
Yes,
document, so,
But that's in here. I'm saying these four principles, we've already talked about welcoming and affirming environment, so that's in here. High expectations of rigorous instruction, inclusive curriculum and assessment, and ongoing PD. So we took these principles and made them key actions throughout the plan in different places. So my point is, all of this is deeply embedded in the strategic plan. We made a we have a key action here, and I think it is in community engagement, that says we called it, we want to create welcoming and affirming environments. We use the exact language.
what page are you on?
Well, I don't know. I have
Not
to
back
go-
in the beginning? No, I'm just wondering. how
These
do I
on
find
page,
it? Which one is that one?
this is, remember this was something, yeah, oh yes,
July 8th, 20. Is that what you're looking at, too, Trustee Valerie?
It looks different, so.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm only on this document, so that's why I couldn't find where it is, but okay.
I'm
So as long
looking
as you're going to
at,
have it under each,
I can,
Page 24,
24.
it
Okay.
says review and adopt the NYS culturally responsive sustaining education. We have to change, it says CRS, we just have to put an E there, framework in the 2022 through 2027 5-year strategic plan.
Okay, so that is, I didn't get there yet.
We
That's
haven't
why I
gotten
didn't
there
see it
yet.
Okay,
Right.
Thank you. That's what I was saying. So let's keep going then.
but it's not just there. I mean, that's
Okay.
the last focus area. It's called Premier Workforce, which was my subgroup area. I can certainly answer any questions around there.
Okay.
But it's before then. It's in student success. It's in climate, safe and healthy climate and culture. It's in communications and engagement. There's some piece of this all throughout, but I really went hard on it in the last area because that's where we are really going to adopt the DEI framework around these principles. So,
Okay, well, let's get there. We are ready to get there. Yes, we're there. We're finished. Anyone else have any comments on goal number 4? Strategic goal number 4? No? Silence? All right. Let's go to strategic goal number 5, premier workforce. We commit to recruit, hire, recognize, and retain and support exceptional employees to maximize student success. All right.
Can we just add the word diverse?
Diverse, where would we put that under? We got to take out and before retain. Recruit, hire, recognize, comma, retain and support.
Recruit, hire, diverse? Can we do it there?
Recruit, hire, I think we have to put after support exceptional employee, exceptional diverse employee.
Diversity, right?
So where do we put it? Where'd you put it, Trustee Warner?
After exceptional.
Speak up, I can't. After exceptional?
Yes, that's what
Okay,
Trustee Alonso said.
got it.
So I will bring your attention to, though, the success metric does include the language. So
Okay, good.
remember, the way you read these sections, we have the strategic goal, the goal area, premier workforce. There's a definition of what that is. So that is our definition. The success metric, remember, for all of the areas we've gone through, that is the metric really that says if we do this well, if we in 5 years finish this well, and do the things that are identified as key, as our strategic objectives and our key actions. District systems and structures that attract, recruit, and retain a talented, diverse, and highly effective workforce of instructional and non-instructional staff in a welcoming and supportive environment. That is the ultimate goal of that metric, of that goal. So we didn't put it in, but we can certainly add it, but we weren't remiss in forgetting that, because we recognize here a premier workforce must be diverse. So we did put it there.
So we're going to take out that first and put a comma and then put diverse after exceptional diverse employees. You read the success metrics. Now I'm going to go to the key action plans. Safety strategic objective number 1, ensure all district protocols for the evaluation of all staff are developed and used efficiently to improve staff effectiveness and student achievement. All instructional and non-instructional staff will be evaluated on an annual basis, as determined by law. Provide annual recertification training for administrators and directors on the New York Department of Education APPR multi-dimensional framework. Provide training to administrators and teachers on the New York State Teaching and Leadership Framework used for formal and informal evaluations to build internal capacity and sustainability among district office, administrators, leaders, teachers, and staff. Monitor the tenure process to ensure that all required tasks are completed prior to recommendation on the board, to the board. Any questions, comments?
I'm wondering, within your plan, when you are talking about evaluation and ensuring that evaluations are being done, do you want to do some type of equity intervisitations? I know you did something really great this year with the principals going from building to building, and I would like to see that be kind of like a system in place that could be annual, and even if it's quarterly, like having the principals get together and doing some evaluations together of the different buildings and continuing the training, because I see you're giving them training, but that's the recertification training. It's always good, as you know, as an administrator, to have someone to talk to. So I know you did it this year with the intervisitation, and I'm wondering, what do you think about making that something you do either annually or biannually, and putting it in your strategic plan to say that that's actually who we are as a district?
And I heard you say equity intervisit.
Yeah, you could do equity look-fors within your intervisitation, but I know that comes with some training to make sure equity is definitely present within your instruction and culturally responsive is. But I'm also just wondering strategically, what about those intervisitations?
We are still doing them this year, that we plan to continue. We call them guided visits. We just did one at LF Jackson. We've done one here at the high school. Every building will have one. And that's when the high school principal was at Jackson.
Right, and it looks really good for that to be part of your plan, because that is something that you have implemented this year, the guided visits.
And so are you doing those, Dr. Iverson, annually or quarterly? How often are they intervisitation?
You're right. I said intervisitation. She said guided. She said guided.
It's the same. So, the principals have been trained on, how do I say it? So this year, yes, we've done a lot of work with, our principals and our leaders around instructional leadership and how to recognize it when it's happening and how to support it when you don't. And so we have talked about several different types of, we call them learning walks or guided visits. They've been trained on several different ones. So absence me and Dr. Macaluso, they're doing them themselves in their buildings, in their classes. We have formalized some, you're right, for all the administrators to give each other support in their building. So that will continue next year, but it's a practice now. It's how we do business. So I didn't put it in here, but we will continue to do that, yes.
What's the frequency on that?
We know we can only get to one school when we can, all of us are there, but the principals are doing them now in and out of classrooms on their own. They're doing them on their own.
It just, my opinion, it just looks like you're doing something different than just the recertification that has to be done.
Yes.
Because you actually implemented something district-wide, and, I mean, you don't have to put it in there, but it's
Yeah,
something
thank you.
good. It's a good strategy. Like you said, it's who you are now, and if you archive it, memorialize it, whatever word you want to use, and say this is something that we do, and I'm going to commit to it quarterly, but it's something strategically that you're doing to improve the evaluation process for your administrators.
Right.
So I just thought it was something nice that you brought to us before.
And for the process really helps our administrators become, you're right, better evaluators looking, it's how they evaluate instruction. So it's helping them be better at looking at instruction and supporting where they need to support. I'm going to ask Dr. Macaluso, can you, Dr. Macaluso, very briefly describe the process we've been using with the pairing? Going into, you and I went into the high school classes together, then you went with Gary. It's all kinds of permutations of groups where we're doing these guided visits, and then we had a whole big one where all of us were at Jackson, all of us were here.
Sure. So we have
In terms of frequency, answering that question for trustee mayors.
So we have started the process, I believe, mid-January, and it's been continuing. So every 2 weeks, a team of 2, and it's approximately, off the top of my head, it's approximately 8 different teams of 2, so 16 administrators who visit specific types of classrooms, so pre-kindergarten classrooms, second grade classrooms with special education students in it. And so we are using a tool that was developed for frequent visits to classrooms, short observations of practice that's going on in there. And what we do is then we calibrate as a team, and one administrator will enter all the data into a portal, and then we use that to inform professional practices. So, for example, we just presented at the Targeted Leadership Professional Development just last week, whereby we noticed that in a vast majority of our classrooms, students were engaged. Students may have been engaged in individual practice. And then there was some discussion going on in the classrooms, Q&A, but it was teacher-led Q&A. So what we would like to do is see a shift where students are guiding the conversation. And so as a result of that, what we've done is we've asked our pedagogical staff, our faculty, to identify key areas in their instructional practice where they would create anchor charts documenting something that the students should know and be able to do. We've asked them to think about what are like the top 2 things that you want students to be able to walk out of a unit remembering. And then from that, they'll create anchor charts, and they're using the IB key concepts as the frame for the anchor chart, which is designed to have conversation be a little bit more open-ended versus one way. So versus just one answer, multiple different perspectives. And so that will continue to go on throughout the school year, and that's how we're guided, using it.
Thank you, that's so helpful. So every 2 weeks, depending on the mix of the administration is walking around, it's helpful to know. And then any one administrator is doing this once a month or once every 2 months? Like, how does that rotation work?
Every administrator is involved every 2 weeks.
So every administrator every 2 weeks
Every administrator is involved in every 2 weeks. What changes is who your partner is. So, for example,
Right.
I just
Okay.
worked with Mr. Mastrangelo last week. I was at his school. I think the week before I was with
Then
Mr.
you
Smith.
and I did some
Dr.
together.
Iverson and I did some back in January together. So, and I try to alter it up so that somebody has a thought partner who has a lens that's different from their lens.
So if we had this so if it was identified in the strategic plan, it would be guided visits at least monthly, because it's happening twice a month.
Absolutely.
So you could say at least monthly, the person's getting around, right? Because it's happening. And so that level of guide is sustainable.
Absolutely.
Okay, wonderful.
And just to put another plug in that, we also have teachers going in each other's rooms, giving each other feedback, which was a real mindset change. You coming in my room and what do you know? But that has, Dr. Macaluso can speak to that too. I mean, it's just, we have peers looking at each other, giving each other feedback, and the research supports teachers learn best from teachers. And if you want teachers to change their practice, You have to do visits like this, but you got to get teachers talking and looking at each other's instruction in an environment that's very, very safe. It is non-threatening. Dr. Macaluso did mention to you that when we come out of that, right now this is a year of safe practice because they need time to learn it and practice it. Eventually, this will become a piece, we won't be, so for example, when we're doing these walks, principals are not using that data as a part of a person's evaluation, because we're looking at, it's a period of safe practice, we're learning now. So that would eventually will be changed, but we have teachers going inside of classrooms, each other's classrooms too, pairing up and giving feedback. And one of the walks all of our administrators have learned to do is what is called a ghost walk. So where there's no one in the room, it's after the school day, and you go in a room where it's empty and just can collect a lot of data around instruction just by what you see in the room. So it's powerful, and I think we're going to be continuing, and that's part of targeted leadership that's in the budget this year too.
Thank you, Trustee, Dr. Iverson. Trustee Vallon.
Okay, so first, just quickly, Dr. Macaluso, just for my frame of reference, was the short observation form the thing you shared at convocation or some meeting earlier this year? Okay, great.
Same look for us, yes.
Okay. Then, yes, I'm just going to reiterate what Trustee Washington and Trustee Mayor, I do want this specified in this section, but I'm also trying to check under student success, because you mentioned the PLCs, and we've been a PLC district for quite a while, but I can't, it may be in here, but I don't remember and I can't find these PLC classroom visits, which I think is something we do, but it'd be great to memorialize it as something that we value and want to continue to do. So again, I don't see if, I believe the PLC part would belong under student success because it's not evaluating staff. So if it's not in here, because I can't find it so quickly, could we add it there as well if the board agrees and Dr. Iverson agrees that it's something we want here? I know we're going to do it. I just want to memorialize it as something that we value.
So what do you, okay, so I hear a suggestion. Does anybody have any concern, question? No.
No, the only thing that I would like, as we are using the CRSE framework, I'm looking at, let me go back. If we can just say within like 2020, even though it's an urgency, wait, so 2024, 2025, we will do our guided learning walks using the CRSE framework or with an equity lens. So something that just says that we are committed to this, like within our district. And it just shows, because if we work with our leaders, you know, where the head goes, the body follows. So it's just, I think it's something to put in our plan also.
Okay, strategic objective number 2, to improve and increase partnerships with local colleges and universities to identify a diverse pool of highly effective talent for all positions in the district. Excuse me, improve, so the first one is completely crossed out. Then improve district systems and track postings for recruiting, hiring, retaining, and tracking highly effective, diverse staff. So it is in here, down here, but in the front, I'm glad we put it at the top as well. Develop partnerships with education departments at local colleges and universities to recruit student teachers, interns, prospective teachers, and substitutes. Explore options to centralize employment and hiring practices. Continue to onboard and mentor all newly hired teachers and staff to include professional development on district initiatives. So can I just stop us for this? So we do have a process where teachers get a mentor, correct? Are those mentors always tenured already or no? Or does that matter? Sorry.
Mr. Lewis, I'm sorry. I need a mic.
Yours died? Batteries gone?
No, mine is temperamental and it's always on, so we've been shutting it off over there. Okay.
All right.
So our mentoring process is actually formalized as part of the agreement, the GTF agreement that we have.
Wonderful.
It also goes through Teacher Center, and so every mentor who is assigned to a teacher has to be vetted through the process that we have in the Teacher Center. It's a very robust mentoring program that follows
Great.
along with the Danielson rubric.
Wonderful, thank you, Dr. Macaluso. This now says, and staff, so are we having mentors or supports for non-instructional staff as well? Is that what that staff part means, or am I reading into that too deeply?
No, the continue to onboard, the intent here was to make sure we onboard staff. So they don't get a mentor, but to assure that there's an onboarding process. So we can change that wording so it's clearer, but continue to onboard and mentor all newly hired teachers and staff. I see the staff will just make, we talked here at the board and making sure, there's something in place when we onboard and exit employees so that we have a systemic process in place. So we can make that clearer. The mentoring pertains to just teachers, in answer to your question. The onboarding pertains to both.
Thank you. Okay, I'm continuing. Continue to ensure that the hiring committees used to interview at the building level include key stakeholders from the unions, parents, and students. Yeah? Do we need to have diversity in the hiring committees? Do we need to specify that? It's just the one place I don't see diversity.
Yes.
Okay, so I hear two additional trustees saying yes. Dr. Macaluso, did you want to share?
The only caution I would have with that is participation by teachers is voluntary based on their availability, so we may not always be able to achieve diversity based on who volunteers to serve on those committees.
But I think if we put out that
Correct.
we want diverse, then what we receive is what we receive, but we need to, our expectation is diversity. Not that we're going to say, oh, there are 2 black teachers and no white teachers, we're not going to accept you, right? Or vice versa. But our expectation is we would like to have representation of our demographics, and since we're a diverse demographics, we would like that representation. And who volunteers? Volunteers.
Absolutely. I mean, the volunteer aspect would just have to weigh into the metric, right?
Okay, so
I think that's a good metric, because if we are noticing that only the white teachers are applying for the position, then we can say as a district, that's a metric, right? Then what do we do to make sure that our Asian teachers feel comfortable to be part of the hiring committee, or our Latino, so I think it just gives us good metrics as we say diversity, and then we see if we're welcoming and nurturing, and that we're accepting all cultures, and sometimes it just helps us to reflect.
okay, that's a good point. Any feedback? So we would, let me try to get the sentence accurate. Continue to ensure that the hiring committees used to interview at the building level include diverse key stakeholders from the unions, parents, and students. Or is there somewhere else that would fit better? That's where you put it? Okay. Let's keep going. We're almost done, guys. Explore employment options for systemic implementation of DEI in instructional practices, district systems, and structures that support student achievement.
You didn't read the objective first.
I'm sorry, did I read that? Did I miss something?
You didn't read number 3.
I did. Okay, I'm sorry. Let's go back. Strategic objective number 3. Ensure all district institutional decisions, practices, systems, and structures are equitable, inclusive, and support our diverse student population and community. Let me go again now. Explore employment options for systemic implementation of DEI in instructional practices, district systems, and structures that support student achievement. Review and adopt the New York State Culturally Responsive Sustaining Education, CRSE framework in the 22-27 5-year strategic plan to provide a critical lens through which we examine our practices, resources, and scope excuse me, to help district administrators and teachers create a student-centered learning environment grounded in the New York State 4 CRSE principles. So we need to add that E. Appoint a DEI committee representative of administrators, teachers, staff, parents, and a community to lead, define, and develop a district diversity, equity, and inclusion plan. I would only ask, do we want to have a student on the DEI? Huh?
A diverse DEI committee.
A diverse DEI committee. Do we want to have a student, maybe middle high school student or a R.J. Bailey and middle high school student added onto that committee?
We will go with high school for right now.
Okay, so I'll write the word student and you guys decide, how to frame that. Provide professional development for all district staff on diversity, equity, and inclusion, DEI, to begin a wide understanding of our guiding New York State CRSE, gotta add that E again, framework. Continue to ensure equity in student enrollment in advanced courses at the high school. Why now? Listen, we had a whole long discussion on ALP a couple meetings ago. I don't understand. You guys were insistent on having that in here.
Isn't ALP up in student success? Dr. Macaluso, do we speak to ALP in student success, ALP?
We do.
Okay, that's where it is.
No.
I didn't ask where it is. I'm saying we wanted to have ALP in the strategic plan earlier. It was several
Right,
meetings ago.
we didn't
I kept
like the
saying,
fact
why are
that-
we having, you guys don't remember that whole
No, I
conversation?
do.
Okay, great. So if we have a commitment to ensure equity in student enrollment in the advanced courses in the high school, why would we not do that in the elementary school as well?
Dr. Macaluso, can you look at this? What is the language we have for ALP in student success?
I just need a second, Dr. Iverson, because we had revised this one based on the student success feedback that we had at the other section, so I might not be able to pull up the, give me a second. I'm trying to find
Do
that
you
one.
have this version of the plan?
I do, but we had subsequently revised.
Yeah, so what is the language that's in there now? Do you?
So
no,
the current, you want the current or the revisions that we had based on the feedback that we received from the, I can find it, give me a second.
So outside of student success, within the strategic objective number 3, we're focused on continuing to ensure equity in student enrollment in advanced courses in the high school. Why are we not saying continue to ensure, maybe I'm misunderstanding how the document's organized, but
Trustee Valen has her
continue
hand up.
to ensure equity in student enrollment in advanced learning programs and advanced courses at the middle high school. I don't know why that's not there. Trustee Valen,
So,
did you have clarity for me?
Sorry, I'm just going to say, because this section is the premier workforce, I believe this item, if it's not already in the student success section, should belong to the student success section. And yes, Dr. Macaluso, we did revise some items around ALP. I'm trying to find my notes. I don't see exactly what we revised, but I'm just going to pause it to the board. I think this item should be moved.
So I have a suggestion to move the item. Were you going to say that too? I see you nodding. Was that what you were going to say, Dr.? You nodding, right? Were you going to say that too, Dr. Macaluso?
I also nodded.
Okay, yes, somebody nodded over there. I see movement. Thank you. Were you going to suggest that, Dr. Macaluso?
if, I'm just going to try to pull up the revisions that I made for student success based on that feedback, and then I can comment, so just.
Okay, what do we,
I agree with Trustee Valen that that's more about student success.
Okay.
So if that would just move up there, I think that,
so we would
but we
circle
still
this.
should have ALP, and we still should have, right, advanced courses as one.
Right, so ALP and advanced courses.
So can I push back
Yes.
a little bit on
You
that?
sure?
This was my focus area. I think I mentioned early on why we put it here. So I hear, and I think when we discussed it last time, it was around moving things to the other section. So this is the section where, as you can see, we integrated the framework. If you look at the strategic objective where we are, I'm on page 24, it says, ensure all district institutional decisions, practices, systems, and structures are equitable, inclusive, and support our diverse student population and community. With that umbrella of a statement, now go to where we are, to continue to ensure equity in student enrollment in our advanced courses in the high school. That is a systemic practice we're going to do. So we left it here for that reason. Does it connect to student success? Absolutely, but, and I don't know if it makes a difference that it has to be in student success. This action is around practice, looking at our practice of how we enroll kids in these classes to ensure that, like EOS is helping us with that. So it's not a student success measure, it is a measure to ensure equity in those classes, and that's why I think it's appropriate here.
So do you think it's appropriate to add out?
Oh, well, we can add out, but you were talking about moving it.
Yep.
Right, no. Go ahead. Sorry, Trustee Warner?
Is there a problem with putting it in both places? Okay.
Can we leave it in both places? That way it makes sure
Yes,
it
and you
gets
can even
done.
cross-reference.
Cross-referencing. But the issue I brought up was having the sentence, continue to ensure equity in student enrollment in advanced learning programs and
Yes.
advanced courses at the high school. So
added
it starts in ALP, that you continue to ensure equity in student enrollment. Yes, Dr. Macaluso, because you're looking like you want to say something.
That's fine. So actually, I did get a chance, I did have a chance to pull up the strategic plan that I have. We reviewed sometime around the 7th of February, and the conversation that we had, or at least what I captured from our conversation, was that we revised Strategic Objective 5 under student success as follows. Through the extended day enrichment programs and advanced learning program, enrich and augment the regular curriculum to meet the educational needs of participating students. And the metrics of success that we had there were along the lines of measuring participation rate in extended learning opportunities, and then providing teachers of the ALP program with some additional tools to provide instruction. So we had not, at least in this objective, captured anything related to ensuring equity with respect to participation and enrollment. So if that's helpful, I think what we're doing is validating the need to call that out elsewhere, and I think we're saying that we're going to try to call that out in this area, premier workforce.
Okay, so we're leaving it in both places. Trustee Valen, did you have a suggestion? No. Okay, I'm going to go back to page 25. All right, next is integrate diversity, equity, and inclusive practices in all curricula, instructional strategies, district systems, structures, and practices. Keep action in all-inclusive, not just focused on curriculum. I don't know what that means. It sounds like a note of some sort. Okay, we'll keep going. Is that it?
Let's see.
That's the end of the plan.
That's it?
Wow. All right.
So, real quick, when we were talking in reference to appoint a DEI committee representative, administrator, I don't see anywhere in the plan, I guess right here, provide professional development for all district staff. Dr. Macaluso, I'm going, and I guess Dr. Iverson, this is your baby, right? You said. So in reference to implicit bias training, I think that verbiage should be in our plan. And it should be strategic. Who are we training each year or throughout the whole year? So implicit bias training is part of the framework.
Yeah.
So that language should just be, I would like to see that language, because that's the start. That's the shift. When people really understand that there are implicit biases that we have that we didn't even know we had.
I'm going to ask you to even
That's just too
open that.
specific, I think. I will add it.
But you
I
have
think-
PBIS, you have restorative practices, you have second step, you have very specific trainings in the
Those are
other area.
programs, yes.
Right, but implicit bias training,
It will be part of the training they're going to get in diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Well, I'm going to push back, and I'm going to require that it actually speaks to our plan as a district, because that is a necessity when you are starting this work.
Okay.
I'm also going to ask about, and trustees, we need to think about the roles that we're in, because even we need implicit bias training, and we've had multiple conversations. We all have individual life experiences of our own that we need to, as policymakers and as overseers of this district, we need to also look at our own implicit biases. There's a lot of diversity and inclusion that needs to happen, and we all have things that we need to, policies and laws we need to follow to treat all of our rules fairly and equally. So I would actually, I like that idea of having implicit bias in our training, as well as including, board members as well. Whoever's making decisions here for this district need to also look at how we're making these decisions. So I would agree with you, Trustee Washington, and we can go around if we need to kind of have a consensus.
No, it's done.
Trustee Warner, I'll start with you.
I have no opposition to implicit bias training.
Okay, great. Trustee Wong?
Ditto.
Trustee Valen?
Ditto, and I've noted it for governance and policy as a possible retreat topic if we don't do it when the district gets people in.
Thank you, Trustee Valen. Okay.
Great idea, Trustee
That
Valen.
is a great idea. Okay, we've gotten through this 25-page document. Let me stop and thank Trustee Warner, Valen, and Trustee Pineda as well for all of the hours that you put in with our administrators, Dr. Iverson, Ms. Raymond, and Dr. Macaluso. I don't know if anyone else was involved in it, for having your ad hoc committee to meet multiple times, multiple hours, go through multiple iterations, 7 drafts of this document. So thank you very much. I appreciate it. Trustee Warner?
So is the next step that we're going to include a resolution in the next board meeting adopting all the changes that we've discussed will be incorporated. We'll get it in our Friday packet. It'll be attached to the next agenda, and then we'll adopt the plan. Is that correct?
Yes, so we need to see the amended with all the notes on here.
That won't be done by Friday.
It won't be this Friday.
Okay.
but
we will.
Friday.
We will. So I think
Prior
you're
to the next meeting.
okay. I do agree. We need to now make these edits.
Yeah.
And get it polished, and then it comes home through the board, through the packet. So
Yeah.
yes.
And I don't know if Friday to Tuesday is a long enough time for everyone to look through it, but it's obviously, let's let them do the document first, and then we'll keep going from there.
Great and wonderful. Thank you.
But
Okay.
we are shooting to have it done by the end of this month. So if you could, we'll try for by March 28th.
Thank you.
Trustee Valen, what did you want to say?
So as far as if we have questions on the final document, how should we do that? Should we wait until the meeting to pose those, or should we, how do we structure that?
So not if it's up for adoption. So that's why I had initially said we would need more time from a Friday to Tuesday, because if we're adopting it on a Tuesday meeting, we're getting it Friday, that's the whole weekend that people have to have in between their jobs and families to read through another 25-page document to look for whatever specific questions, as you said, may come up. So that's why I said that. So after we get the document, we need some time, not more than a week, but some time to go through it and to formulate questions. Trustee Valen?
And last question. So, and what we're approving would be the plan itself and not what would be posted out there? Because what we've gone through here is the bones of the bones of the plan, but like the guide, thank you for the word, Trustee Long, the dashboard on the website is something separate, correct? Which would include like our value, our mission, our vision, all those things, all the other pieces. Correct? That would be a separate
It should
thing?
look much simpler
Yes.
and
I don't want to say easy to read, but it should be very clear, not 25 pages of a document. No.
So the way we had planned to do it was to, you're right, include on the website when it's final, polished, and approved. We will have our mission, our vision there, of course. We would probably, our core beliefs, and we would have the piece on the portrait of a graduate. What I will let the board know is that right now, the art students are designing a logo for how they feel the portrait of our graduates should look, based on these principles that so that will be on the website. And then only thing from the plan, and we'll have a link to the full document, but what will be on that front page will be the strategic goals and the actions, just the what's this color? The strategic objectives. And then we would put, so we would have, for example, strategic goals, student success. We will have how we define it, the success metrics, and just list the strategic objectives. And so they would, not all that, how we defined each one, because that, and then the link will take you to anyone to go read how we define it. So all of the beige areas under each action, each strategic area, will be listed there. So that was the plan.
Thank you, Dr. Iverson. Okay, if we are all done, any more comments? No, we can move. Yes?
I know, we do need to move
Trustee
on.
Washington?
I just want to know, why is the window open? It's a little chilly. Is there a reason? Okay, so can we close some of them? Thank you. A little chilly.
Okay, next we have item B3, budget presentation, and I'm going to turn it over to you, Ms. Raymond.
Yes. Oh, you're going to go there? Okay. So just as Ms. Raymond is coming to the mic, I want to say good evening again to our community, our parents, our faculty, our students, and to our board. Our purpose tonight is to present to the board and the community the second iteration of the 23-24 budget. Again, I just want to make sure we bring back to the community and state our purpose in this was to develop a budget that will provide the greatest public education for all of our students, while simultaneously being good stewards of the district's finances and our taxpayers. The changes that we will present tonight represent our response to the board's charge during the March 7th board meeting to go back and prioritize the district's needs. The budget that will be presented tonight, even with the reductions, continues to detail the investment we want to make on behalf of the students in Greenburgh Public Schools. I will turn it over to Lisa Raymond, our Assistant Superintendent of Business, who will present the budget. And as the budget development is a continuous process, we'll include and share how we have continued to identify other potential reductions that we will include in the next iteration of the presentation. Ms. Raymond.
Thank you, Dr. Iverson. Good evening. This is the March 14th budget presentation for the 2023-2024 school year.
I'm sorry, can you put the mic on and put it towards your mouth?
It is on.
Oh, well, can you put it towards your mouth? Thank you.
A recap of the tax cap calculation shows that the calculation is based on the current year's tax levy, which is multiplied by the tax base growth factor. The tax base growth factor is the measure of construction and capital improvement growth in our district as determined by the New York State Department of Taxation and Finance. To this, we add back the payments in lieu of taxes, also known as pilots, received in this school year, and subtract out the capital levy exclusions, which are commitments the district is obligated to pay. This total is then multiplied by the lesser of the current Consumer Price Index, or CPI, or 2%, whichever is lesser. In this calculation, the CPI is capped at 2%, since the CPI is approximately 7% at time of this calculation. To this total, we subtract the pilot payments we expect to receive in lieu of taxes and add the capital levy exclusions that are an obligation of the district. If the district chose to levy an amount that did not meet the maximum levy for a simple majority, they can add to the next levy 1.5% of the amount not included in that levy. For the 2023-2024 tax levy, the district can choose to include $983,433. This would make the tax levy for a simple majority plus, which is 50% plus one vote, a maximum of $67,221,406, which would be a 6.08% increase from this year's levy. The new positions that are included in this 2023-2024 proposed budget are 3 special education teachers as deemed necessary by the Director of Pupil Personnel Services based on the IEPs and CSE meetings for students, a Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, a Dean of Students, a College and Career Readiness teacher, a science coach, a stipend to create a security coordinator for all of our security staff in all of our buildings, and putting the ECP teachers on the same step schedule as the elementary teachers. The budget that is proposed for tonight is $78,845,537, which is a 5.76% increase over this year's budget. This would require a tax levy of $66,085,740, which would be a 4.29% increase over this year. A school district budget is broken down by 6 categories, which are called functions. Listed here are the 6 categories that we will be discussing this evening. Within every function are 8 objective codes, which are all listed here. Here is the next slide, Amy. Here is the breakdown of expenses that make up this proposed budget. We will go over each section separately. All functions contain the objects that we previewed in the prior slide. General support is for expenses for the Board of Education, which includes all board expenses, the district clerk, and the district meetings, which are for the budget vote and any other vote the district may hold within that school year. Also included is central administration, which includes the superintendent's office, the assistant superintendent for business, and all other business office expenses, including the treasurer, all auditors, legal services, recruitment of staff, staff trainings, our employee assistant program, records management, and public relations.
Ms. Raymond, do you want questions in between or at the end?
That's up to you.
So my question about the, so I do have a question about the Board of Education percent.
Can we finish this slide and then take questions?
Sure.
By slide. Operations and maintenance includes the Director of Facilities, his office staff, cleaners, custodians, and maintenance staff. All the supplies needed for our facilities are included here, as well as electric, telephone, fuel oil, water, our security systems, sanitation, fire inspections, playground maintenance, pest control, and other expenditures that are deemed necessary for our school grounds and buildings. The technology section listed here is for central data processing expenses, which includes student management software and other software such as LobbyGuard, eSchool Plus, and Microsoft Office. Special items are for general insurance, BOCES administrative costs, dues, judgments and claims, and property assessments. The general support portion of this budget is an increase of 6.97%. This is largely due to the increase in costs of fuel oil, electricity, and supplies. Any questions?
Yes, the Board of Education's code went up 17%. Can you talk about that, please?
Certainly. So we increased some expenditures under the Board of Education for board retreats, for BOCES expenditures, and between last year and this year, there was a change in the district clerk position.
So BOCES expenditures, what does that mean?
That is your policy service.
So is that going up, the cost of that?
All BOCES coasters are going up. They go up every year.
So because we're using more BOCES coasters, is that where that money is coming from?
Well, you use the BOCES coasters for your policy, to get your policies, policy reviews and policy updates.
So this is an increase of 17.5%. So when I look at the change in clerk, there wasn't a 17.5% salary change, so that's not explained there. We do have more retreats, but we've had one retreat off-site. The other retreats were all on-site, I believe, unless I'm remembering incorrectly. So are we saying 17% increase is coming from?
A combination of all of those things.
And is that a salary, like salary increase also?
Correct.
The other areas don't have that high of a percentage, which seems so strange to me. So is it, I mean, we had a breakdown 70, huh?
It does seem pretty large of an increase.
It does.
Yeah, it's a bit much.
It's twice the other, I mean, the other one is 8.89%. It's twice as much. So you're moving, do you want to say something? So I mean, we had this I had a 77-page document of line by line. I don't know if this is updated at all, Ms. Raymond, but can I find that increase in here?
You can find the expenditures compared from one year to the next.
Okay, I'll ask you later. Sorry, thank you. It was a little bit of shocking of a high number. Thank you.
Yeah, that also would include if we had to have two votes.
Trustee Valen.
So you mentioned the fuel and oil cost increase, which, yes, of course. I'm only going to question, when I didn't do a super deep dive, but I did a quick glance. I saw that some of the electricity and the fuel oil costs went up at some buildings and not others. Is that because particular buildings use more or aren't
Correct.
as up to date with their?
Some buildings are open more than others.
Okay, I just want to make sure the other buildings weren't overlooked and they should also be increased. I want to make sure we're budgeting conservatively.
Dennis and I and Elizabeth and Amy went through and analyzed. We've been analyzing them month by month to see where the increases are, and if you'll notice or remember, we have had to do quite a few budget transfers to get money in there to pay for these expenses.
Okay, I just want to make sure we're not missing an increase that should happen at other buildings. So, okay, thank you.
I think that's good. Okay, go ahead. Instruction is one of the largest functions. The administrative portion includes the Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum Instruction and Personnel, the Director of International Baccalaureate and their offices, principals, directors, and their office staff, as well as supplies and contractual expenses. Included in this budget is a position for a Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, and a Dean of Students. Under regular and special education instruction, this includes all teachers, teacher assistants, teacher aides, nurses, LPNs, occupational therapists, speech therapists, social workers, and the career and technical education that some of our high school students sign up for through BOCES. We've also included here a college and career readiness teacher, a science coach, and the conversion of the ECP teaching staff to the elementary school teacher step schedule, and the addition of the special education teachers and a stipend for security coordinator. This section also includes the social emotional learning program and the additional items proposed in the first presentation on March 2nd. That includes restorative practices, social skills programs, and a student advisory panel. We will continue to work with equal opportunity schools, which will be in year 3, at a reduced rate from this school year. Continue to work with targeted leadership, which will be in year 3, and we will work with the International Baccalaureate program. We will provide professional development for all staff and continue to have partnerships with Westchester Prep, form a partnership with Healthy Kids, and a teacher recruitment firm that we have been researching. Instructional support item, which are the 2300 to the 2800 codes, includes teachers and supplies for summer schools, librarians and school library expenses, the director of technology and all technology support staff, all technology, including the continuation of one-on-one devices for all students. I've mentioned guidance counselors, health services, our nurses, our LPNs, health and welfare billings that we have to pay other schools, psychologists, social workers, social emotional learning, as discussed again at the March 2nd budget presentation. And it also includes the athletic director, co-curricular advisors, and coaches. The instruction portion of the budget represents a 5.17% increase. Are there any questions? Okay. Transportation is broken down into two categories: district transportation and contract transportation. The district portion includes all expenses for our transportation building. As part of our contract with Royal Coach, we provide a set number of gallons of fuel for the buses, since the district pays no taxes, and BOCES expenses, which will include our consultant. Under contracted transportation, this is for our agreement with Royal Coach that provides transportation for all students to and from school, including transportation to 56 private schools, field trips, athletic trips, and after-school programs. The contract with Royal Coach cannot exceed the CPI that will be published in May. Therefore, we need to project what the CPI will be when preparing the budget. We use 6% for the 2023-24 school year. CPI for this school year came in higher than we projected last year when doing the budget, thus the additional increase in this section. Employee benefits include all retirement systems, the New York State Teacher Retirement System and the New York State Employee Retirement System, Social Security, workers' compensation, life insurance, unemployment insurance, disability, health, and dental insurance, and union welfare benefits. The district currently has 3 health insurance plans. The most participation of our staff is within the Swiss CHIP program. We have received information on one of the 3 plans for increases. Included here is also retiree health insurance, Medicare reimbursement to retirees who qualify, health insurance buyout, and wellness payments to employees through their collective bargaining agreement. Unemployment insurance was increased during the pandemic. In analyzing the trends over the past few years, we have decreased this amount to $50,000. The employee benefits portion of this budget is a 6.03% increase. We have budgeted $1.3 million, as we have done over the past several years, to do work throughout our school buildings. Some of the projects that could be completed are the R.J. Bailey Auditorium roof, which is recommended by our architects. The Woodlands Middle High School track that will be redone through the grant from Senator Cousins. We would need to increase, if we want to increase the track from 6 lanes to 8 lanes, and to complete additional items on the tracks would exceed the $500,000 grant. In addition, the capital money could also be used for bathroom renovations that are needed throughout our school buildings, particularly the restrooms by the Woodlands Middle High School gymnasium and bathrooms at R.J. Bailey. To enhance security, we are exploring installing access controls on all our doors at the Woodlands Middle High School to prevent access through the school by people from the outside without permission, and the high-view 3rd grade window walls that need replacement. As mentioned at the March 2nd meeting, we are currently researching vaping detectors for the Woodlands Middle High School. The vestibule at the Woodlands Middle High School has been approved by the New York State Education Department and will begin sometime in the spring-summer. Additional cameras indoors and outdoor in some of our buildings, upgrade to our visitor management system, and upgrading security radios at all schools. We will be working with CLPS, who is the security firm through BOCES that we have been working for, on a Justice Department grant to enhance, improve, and/or upgrade our security, and we'll be applying for these additions mentioned above. The grant opens in April, and we will begin working on that as soon as it is released. Then these major expenses can be broken down by object. Objects are salaries and benefits, equipment, supplies and textbooks, contractual items, tuition, BOCES services, debt service, and interfund transfers. You will, I'll go back to that in a minute. You will see that the major expense in any budget would be salaries and benefits for all of our staff. Keep going. Revenue. Okay. The largest of all of the revenues for a school district is the tax levy. We are proposing in this presentation a tax levy increase of 4.29%. The next largest revenue stream is state aid. The first round of state aid has Greenberg receiving 12% more than this school year. This is mainly due to foundation aid being fully funded and an increase in expense-driven aids such as BOCES and transportation. We will apply $2 million from fund balance to the budget and round this off with miscellaneous revenues, which include an increase in our sales tax collected from Westchester County. Each quarter, the district receives approximately 1.11% in sales tax revenue. We've also seen an increase in interest income this year, with interest rates increasing and us utilizing New York Liquid Assets funds to do our investments, and health and welfare billing to other schools for students that attend private schools in our school district has increased. Greenberg is responsible for the health service to these schools and can bill the district of residency for these students for reimbursement. So what is next? We're still waiting on more final numbers for state aid. State aid hasn't been finalized. It's just the governor's numbers that have been released. We will adjust the budget as necessary according to the recommendation to Dr. Iverson from the Board of Education. We will review current retirements, and we are reviewing enrollment. Dr. Iverson, did you want to speak to what we did this week? And
So as I mentioned, the budget process is a continuous process. We, since this presentation, have continued to meet this Monday, and as Ms. Raymond is mentioning here, looking at our current enrollment, where we can reduce staff positions in the district as well, that will help defray some of the positions we're asking the budget and the community to support. So our purpose is to identify where we can repurpose money from positions we plan not to fill and use, again, that money to help offset some of the costs. We have identified about 10 that we hope to be able to share in the next iteration of the budget to show how it will impact what Ms. Raymond is showing here. Looking at enrollment and retirements, we have been able to look at some positions that we will incorporate in our next presentation. So what Ms. Raymond is presenting is the second round, when we're hoping to show you an even lower amount when we come back in 2 weeks.
And we would just ask the board for a direction on where it is you would like us to go from here, on top of what it is we are doing, just to get an idea.
Ms. Raymond, we asked for a priority list?
Yes.
We listed that in here.
That's the, okay, so that's your priority
Where's the
list.
priority list? Which slide was
Go ahead,
that?
go backwards. Keep going. Keep going. Right there.
Which one?
So,
the teachers.
okay, that doesn't say priority list, but this is the new positions in the proposed budget is a priority list. Okay.
All right, so in reference to, let me go back. administration, where it says dollar change, $343.50, I guess $343,050. Can you explain that?
Well, under instruction, the administration, that includes the two positions that we're asking for, the two new positions, the Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, and the Dean of Students.
So I have a suggestion. You know how we have our International Baccalaureate Director? Is there a way that that position and the DEI position can be combined instead of adding another person? So it's a thought. I'm not asking you.
I like that thought, Trustee Washington. There's been lots of conversation amongst individual trustees about combining positions in general, not any particular one, but in general. I know myself, I'm a little, I would love everything for the students, but I'm a little concerned that, you know, we're not a large district. When I look at comparable districts with the same student size, we do not have this many specialized positions. There are other districts that have similar demographics, enrollment beds, income levels of families, and the structure is much different. It's less heavy, and yet we have a desire to have multiple specialty areas. It's kind of like what I say is a small family where each person kind of does more than one thing. But for some reason, I mean, we're not a large district with multiple financial capabilities to fill multiple positions. These are things that have weight for years to come, even if it's doable now and money is found now. These are positions that come with salaries and benefits that increase year to year, that have changes with regards to collective bargaining that cannot be lowered. These are staple amounts of money that roll over year to year that have to have an increase. So even if we can afford it this year, 2 or 3 years down the line, it becomes even more expensive, and the areas that end up getting cut are the areas directly for our children. So I'm wondering, how can we combine, going along with what you said, some multiple positions to get more out of a smaller amount of people. And again, I urge anyone who has a question about what I'm saying to look at comparable districts, some of our neighbors, comparable in size, comparable in demographic, comparable in financial, I'm sorry, I'll let you finish, comparable in financial makeup of the community that do not have these multiple positions. Trustee Washington, I did not mean to interrupt you. Go ahead.
So then also in reference to reviewing retirement, are we at the position in our district to roll out a buyout? So there could be some retirements that could help us also financially?
Talking about a retirement incentive
Yes.
for staff, we could look into that, certainly. They have
Okay.
done that in the past.
And then historically, I know you know this already, but historically, the athletic director was the dean also? So, I don't know, you did know this, I think we talked about this before, right? So if there was combining positions, athletic director, if you really feel that you need a dean at the high school level, can also maybe act in that role until some more finances come to play?
So that's why we yesterday spent time, we went through the budget, this big document, all the pages, line by line, and where we saw monies that were just rolled over year after year after year, but looking at what was budgeted, projected, and actually used, there was really no movement. We took money from there. So that's how we got to this. We did that right after the directive from the board to go back and prioritize. So Dr. Macaluso, Lisa, Ms. Raymond, and I sat and went through page by page and came down to this. Then we know we have to be good stewards of the district's finances and our community So we have identified 10 positions that are in this budget that money can offset these positions.
So 10 positions that are currently in the district
that we will no longer need.
that we will no longer need.
But keep the money and use that to help offset what we're asking.
So if you've identified the 10, then why do we see the 300?
Because we did that Monday, and we didn't put it in here, and we didn't want to change the presentation, and we didn't want to change it. We knew it was after the fact you got the PowerPoint. So we will reflect that in Friday's packet, if you like, or at the next budget presentation. So you will see more of a balance and you will see a lower amount. So can I speak to, I clearly hear the point about can we combine some of the work. I think we just have to be really real about that. If some of that you can do, but you cannot expect the same level of performance of someone who has a laser focus on some of this work. You just won't get that. So, I mean, that's a given. We would do that if that was a directive and do the very best we can. I think when we go through the strategic plan and we talked about what we are expecting, you know, the positions we're asking here, true, they're support the plan and the needs of the district. The DEI coordinator, clearly I hear your point, Trustee Washington, but if you looked at the job description that I sent home as part of the plan, that job description of what is expected of this position first is everything in the strategic plan, everything that person will lead. The person will also, as Ms. Raymond said, take over EOS. We have been 2 years of equal opportunity schools paying about $25,000 a year, and they have walked us through the process of how we increase our awareness and our enrollment of our high school students in our upper level classes. Year 3, the DEI coordinator will take that on. So that money from EOS will be decreased from what it is in here now, because year 3 for EOS is not having the consultant coming as they were doing, training. It's just utilizing their tools to continue the work with this person. So that's one person. That's one way we're kind of piggybacking, you know, taking some money and adding it there or decreasing it there. Targeted has been cut in half. If there's only one consultant, we are getting better at this, so you will see a difference in that. But the DEI coordinator is important. I understand your point, Trustee Maris, around other districts and all. Most districts as well have a DEI coordinator who's leading this work. So, if you, and I can get some research and some names of districts for you. So to give this to the IB coordinator, and I'll have Dr. Macaluso speak to that, we just spent 2 full days as leaders in IB learning. And the amount, and we just went under our accreditation, is that correct, Dr.? Or we're doing that. Can you speak to the amount of what we heard we must do in IB that the district coordinator or the director over that is charged to do? That to take on this, something will suffer.
So I think in response to the question that's asked, it's important for us to think about looking at the allocation of duties for all of our staff. I mean, this one particular, maybe there were 2 that I heard, but right now, as it currently stands, the director who supports International Baccalaureate also supports World Languages and IB. I'm sorry, World Languages and ENL. The athletic director also supervises health and physical education, so 2 content areas. So it's just a matter of fact of the way we currently have it structured. And so listening to the feedback, Dr. Iverson will guide us into how we should take a look at that and restructure or maybe possibly look at some of those options. But right now, I think that it's just important for us to keep in mind. And then we have other departments that are maybe singleton departments, for lack of a better description, but the work that's encompassed in that department is quite broad.
So one of my concerns, just so you know, as a district, if you present a budget that is going to go against what's happening in reality, where, we all know everything's going up. What they're going to do is tell us to cut. And you're going to have those 2 coaches positions cut. And that's what starts to happen. So I just want us to, we have to be very careful when we present a budget that shows that much of an increase, and you're stating you want another administrator. That's when it gets really hairy, and that's when people start to come out the woodworks that you've never seen to a budget vote, and they vote us down. And there's been 2 attempts where we had coordinators or coaches that did reading and did math, and we came down and said we don't want it. And they had to go. And that's what happened. So so I'm just bringing it to you. I think we all would love to have someone laser focused. And like you said, you have 2 administrators doing different things already. It's just trying to think outside the box until we're at a place where we can have a little bit more financial security to really help us with our strategic plan. That's just me speaking as one trustee.
And that's why we're asking you to give us a direction, not so much on the budget, but where do you want the tax levy to go so that we can create the budget?
I just wanted to, were you done, Trustee Washington? I just wanted to say one thing. We're a small school district that the majority of the community does not support when we try to do these grand things. We're a small school district. The larger community does not always support. So I just want to say that. Now, Trustee Warner, I think, wants to answer your tax levy question.
Okay, so just from years and years and years of experience going back prior to the 2011 tax cap, in the bad old days when we used to not be able to count on our budgets passing, anytime you see a 4% plus number on that tax levy, it spells trouble, okay? So I would request that you do a little research project, go back and find tax levies in previous years and try and find something that's above 4%, see what the vote totals look like, and just present that back to us. That's going to be tax levy for last year, tax levy for the year before, and the year before, and the year before, and try and find some examples of 4% levies. But I think the fact that you're already working on this means that you already kind of anticipate this and know that this is going to be an issue, right? Okay.
Correct, but if we stayed within 3%, is that acceptable?
3% is acceptable for me.
What happens is anything that can get rounded up to 4 will be used against us. So if you're at 3.4, it will be viewed as a 3, and you can legitimately say that it's a 3. So that's why I'm just pulling out the number 3.4.
I think Trustee Warner likes 3.4.
Okay.
I like 3.
Okay, but that's kind of where I'm at, but I want to see what fits in that. Now, I had come into this thinking that there were going to be a number of security positions, and it looks like you already did some cutbacks on that and some combination of that. You've got one piece that's like a 10K stipend, which is pretty frugal, and you've got one dean of students. I'm not opposed to the Dean of Students Athletic Director thing if you can find the right person and make it work. I'm a little more concerned about IB because of combining that, because that's not just IB. It's like you said, IB and ENL and all of that. And so you may, put so much burden on one administrator that it won't work. So am I hearing from your saying that this is a priority list? Is this DEI thing actually at the top of your list of priorities?
Is that the second? We asked for a priority list, so I just see a bunch of lists here. So these 7 positions.
Trustee Mears, that's a very good question. The presentation that I sent home did not have the 3 special education teachers, and I didn't list them originally because I knew that was going to be mandated by EPs and CSE meetings. But knowing that that was new in the budget, I did list them here. So I think that that is something that has to happen, that couldn't be cut. So this priority list, starting with Director of Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, this list right here is Dr. Iverson's wish list of everything that we've heard from all of the principals.
Thank
Okay,
you.
yeah. Can I?
Yes.
Okay. So then, when I looked at, we had a budget on the back around the 27th or so, and then a newer draft of the budget that we had in our last Friday's packet. And when I added everything up without these 3 special education teachers, I used your 35K for benefits, and I came up with 755K. And then I looked at that, but said, well, what's the delta between this budget and the last one? And I came up with about 1.8 million. And I'm not sure, how much is 3 special education teachers? I don't think it's going to total up to anything like that.
3 special education teachers could be anywhere from 250 to 350,000 just in salaries.
All right, so I'm thinking that there's a little 755 plus 3, plus 355, that's less than 1.8. So I'm thinking there's some more in there besides what's on the high priority list. There's some other things that have gotten folded in. So if you can come back with whatever made up the delta between that last budget and this budget so that we have a complete list, that would be good. I think, and then I have, I can go page by page through like maybe 8 pages worth of just items. There may be 20 items that have large changes, and we've covered some of them already. Do you want to do that here, or do you want to do that on the Thursday meeting? We have a Finance and Facilities Committee meeting in which we have, a presentation of the budget that will probably be somewhat similar to this, and then an opportunity for people to spend time going line by line through the budget. And also, yes. So is that something we want to do here?
It's up to you, Dr. Iverson.
Well, it's 9 o'clock now. There might be some other questions.
Can you send your 8 pages to Dr. Iverson and I so we can go over it?
And yes, and you can report it and handle it that way. That'll work just fine.
Okay.
Great.
Thank you, Trustee
So I'm
Warner.
looking for that list of past CPIs then. Thanks.
Does anybody else have any questions or comments? I'm a little concerned here that I don't see anyone, again, I like people directly working with our students, not planning and oversight. So I like social workers talking to our students about, as I mentioned in elementary school, destruction of property, care of our community, people who actually have additional time. Our current PPS staff, we have several leaves happening right now where people are not there. We have people kind of substituting. We have mandated services that are going on, and our current staff is very booked. So I'm a little concerned that we don't have any, whether it's hiring of psychologists, social workers, counselors, or some sort of relationship with a agency that provides social, emotional, behavioral supports, counseling supports for our students that are, whether they're mandated or not mandated, but need that place to talk. That just concerns me. I don't see any of that here. At all. And I would, I'm not an educator, but I'd argue that's a special education piece because although it's not an IEP thing, it's something that is specialized and needs to really be addressed. So I don't know, that's not in here. We have Director of DEI, Dean of Students, college and career teachers, science coach, security, but we don't have how our students communicate, care about each other. We don't have anyone specifically focused on that in here. So, I don't know. Now, lastly, sorry, my second part is the conversion of ECP staff. That's down at the bottom. Is this ordered that the conversion of ECP staff would be no, it's just in general. Okay. Got it, thank you.
So Dr. McLuce and I have heard that, and we did sit and talk and look at our ratio of population of students in every building to guidance counselor and social worker. So every building does have a social worker. Am I correct, Dr. Macaluso? Every building has a psychologist. Based on the enrollment of our elementary schools, that enrollment is commensurate to the number of psychologists and social workers. So just in response to your question, that is why we didn't add any in the budget.
Thank you, Dr. Iverson. It does not take into account variables that occur. So if we were to look at other districts similar and comparable in size, that how many student enrollment and how many counselors, social workers, guidance counselors, PPS staff, support staff we have, we can compare apples and apples. However, there's multiple variables, such as our special education population. If we have a larger special education population with mandated counseling services, that now takes away from that time from that PPS staff. In addition, if we look at incidents, and we have, whether it's fighting incidents, property destruction incidents, person-to-person incidents, we can go ahead and collect that data. I mean, we can call other board members. I guess as a superintendent, you can call the superintendents. Assistant superintendent can call other districts. I can think of 2 districts in particular that are our neighbors that have very similar size, very similar demographics. We can ask them, how many incidents do you have in these grades? How many, whether it's violent incidents, substance incidents, bullying incidents, person-to-person DASA, Dignity for All Student Act incidents. So if you tell me that the incidents are the same, if you tell me the special education rate, mandated services are the same, the enrollment is the same, then I will be perfectly fine and I will never ask you for another increase in staff amongst counselors or social workers. But if we look at those variables and we have some higher numbers, that means we have a higher need.
Well, we definitely have a need. I mean, I'm sorry, Trustee Valen, you had your hand up. Go ahead.
Trustee Valen?
I just want to say that I concur. I think we need fewer architects and more builders. I want more hands-on directly with the kids. We've been saying for years now, since COVID, SEL, it's a nationwide crisis, and let's be honest, I mean, we're not getting enough one-to-one mentoring situations. We're not getting enough. If you wanted to coach it as like a restorative practices coach or an SEL coach or something like that, so we have a practitioner who can be used district-wide and go where the need is, then I could get behind that, but fewer generals, more boots on the ground. Thank you.
Any other questions, comments, or concerns? Trustee Washington?
I just think if we are going towards restorative practices, it would be nice, like Trustee Valen said, to have more boots on the ground and not so many generals. I think that would just enhance the restorative practice movement that we're trying to do in our school. And I know historically, we always think a dean of students will take away the problem of discipline or violence in a school. But when we look at the latest research, it talks in reference to the disparity in suspensions and the disparity that more Black and Latino males are suspended. So more schools are going away from that zero tolerance mentality and going towards restorative practices. So a dean of students is a nice title, but who are we as a school district when it comes to the behaviors, and what data are we using to drive that we need more students to be expelled or superintendent's hearings, because we already talked about that. It's right down the pipeline to prison. So who are we as a school district if we just approve restorative practices training? Why is a dean of students a necessity? Why isn't someone, like you said, Trustee Valen, more of a practitioner? Like you said, President Mayers, a social worker who does not have to work with just mandated students, or a school psychologist who does not have to just do the CSEs, but they're free enough to do the restorative practice training within each building, or as a district, more than one, that we can really change the mindsets of students and let them know that there is some restoration even in your mistakes.
May I address that?
You sure can.
Thank you. So I just bring you back to the plan that I submitted to the board, where there were some draft job descriptions just as potential positions if this was even approved, where we did include the dean of students. First, the point I would like to make, and just as a matter of reminding, due to this year, there was a point the board did ask the high school principal, tell us what you need. And the high school principal did ask for a dean. So that, in response to that, that's one reason this is here. But in asking for that, even him asking for that, we are not looking for someone to just come in here and do discipline. We're not looking for anyone to come in here and just suspend kids. We're not looking for someone to come in here and just be that liaison to and I don't know what deans normally do. This job description is very inclusive, and if you remember when you read it, this person is connecting, and is right here, would be someone to lead that restorative work across the district. It's not just, a lot of time would be spent at a high school, but we wouldn't train, or we would not even hire anyone who's not trained in restorative justice principles and practices. But so if you look at this job description, to me, it defines exactly what we want. Someone who has knowledge of restorative justice practices and culturally responsive interventions related to school discipline. Totally different frame of mind than someone who just suspends kids. This is keeping kids in school. Proactive interventions and supports to support students, someone working with students on those supports, academic achievement, personal and social development. So someone who supervises, monitors students during arrival and departure, but is visible in the classrooms, doing these small groups around restorative justice. So that child who's sent out of the class doesn't necessarily have to get to the office where there's the principal, the assistant principal. There is this liaison in the middle who works with that child, because the goal is to get them back into the classroom. It is a different way we did frame how we're going to use that position. I would not agree to someone coming in just to be around discipline. So maybe the title even is lending itself to that. But rather than go through everything here, there are very clear responsibilities this person would have that will connect to what we as a district are saying. We want someone to be around and lead the work around students. So, and be connected to the students, and a dean does that. That is, if you think of what deans do, most students have the best relationship with the dean of students, who does this level of work, because this person keeps them in school, gives them strategies, works with them, and connects with families, builds that relationship. This is on the ground, on the boots, as they say, work where someone is just visibly always, and the kids develop that rapport with this person, and consequently, because of those relationships, they behave better. And so, Trustee Mayers made a point about the incidents. I think we've had some incidents this year. This was another vision for why, to help curtail some of that, so that we can do more training with our students, and more assemblies, as you mentioned, more activities. This person would oversee all of that systemically across the district. So we were responding in that way. It certainly is something we can go back and look at, and ultimately we understand that. I just want to be able to let you know our thought process was just what you were thinking. We know what the community and what the community expects. And we know what you expect of our principals, and we know what we want for our kids, a better environment for them to learn the language, to have this connection, so they do some of the things that you're mentioning. So I appreciate your comments, but I just want you to know that is documented here, the different vision of this position that we had in mind, as well as the DEI coordinator. So
Dr. Iverson, I'm
yes,
just
ma'am.
going to, in reference to the dean, two things, and I'm going to stop after this. One, it sounds more like a culture and climate coordinator position. But then number two, this was for Lisa Raymond, if we were to hire school psychologists or social workers at a certain level, like salary level, can we get more bang for the buck if we have two of that type of position, people that have went to school for this type of changing of mindset, supporting, and President Mayes could give me better words because this is her profession, but would we get more bang for the buck to hire two that are specifically for this type of practice? I'm not asking you to tell me right now. And then, Dr. Iverson, just note, so your vision is for that person to be for the whole entire district. And then just in reference to sometimes students, if you're an administrator, are you really, do you have that real relationship with kids sometimes? Because if they think dean of students, they think discipline. So that's why social workers, psychologists might be able to get a little bit more through the students or build a better relationship. So it's just ideas, but thank you for the description of your vision.
Well, did you want to add anything? We have talked about this in terms of how we would tie this to restorative practice.
I didn't have anything specifically to add to that piece, but Trustee Washington, I know the question was deferred to Ms. Raymond. She and I do work closely on staffing, so you would not be able to get a 2-for-1. Just the levels of entry level or the kind of average salary for the positions, you would not be able to get that. Certainly you could get a psychologist, a clinician for fewer dollars than you could for an administrator, but that's just, that's just the reality of things. But you would not be able to get 2-for-1. And then, no, Dr. Harrison, you've explained the pieces that we've discussed, so I think that that's all on the table and clearly, articulated.
So can we look at numbers, though? I mean, we don't necessarily have answers tonight. Trustee Washington made a good point, but our administrative contract and looking at the salary structure, and that should be public now if it's an approved contract. I believe the lowest administrator is in the mid 150 range, but the lowest, you're saying we can't do 2-for-1.
So on average, I'll just give rough numbers that are not in front of me. So our high for a central administration position for a member who's part of the GAO is around 160. And then the lowest, and I'm certainly not using the word lowest as a way of implying somebody's value or worth, but the titles that have the lower amount of responsibility in our GAO contract, which would be equivalent to a dean or an assistant principal, our starting salary is around 125 for that. Teacher salaries are certainly less than that. When Ms. Raymond and I look at instructional staffing, we try to ballpark an $85,000 salary for an instructional person. That's kind of in the middle. And then, of course, we factor in about $35,000 for benefits. So you'd be looking at about $110,000 for a GTF member on average, based on years of experience and the number of degrees that they have, whereas for an administrator, you'd be looking at a base salary of about $125 plus $35,000 in benefits, which puts you at about $155, $160. So the gap is about $40,000, $50,000, which would not allow you to get a second person because that's just not enough.
Okay, so everyone can look up rates.
Because I just know we have like 4 guidance counselors in right? So
Yeah.
just trying to think. All right, but we're going to stop because we got to go.
Yeah, we're taking a lot of time. It's now 9:17. Okay, so does anyone have anything else they want to say about the budget presentation? Questions, concerns, comments? No, let's move on. Next, we have C1, reports and public comments and committee reports.
So I would just like to, for a committee report, the education and wellness, we rescheduled. The chair was listening to the governor about a state of emergency, so we rescheduled it. We will have our education and wellness committee meeting on Monday, March 27th, and it will be in the Innovation Lab? No?
Location to be determined.
Location to be determined.
Correct.
And we will start at 6:30 p.m.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Okay, any other committee reports? Updates? And I heard Trustee Warner saying we have a Finance and Facilities Committee meeting on Thursday, correct, Trustee Warner?
Correct. Thursday, the 16th, at 6:30 p.m. in the Woodlands Innovation Lab, which is right next to the library. You can also, there will also be a link online if you wish to participate remotely through Zoom. We will discuss the budget, and we will have an opportunity to go over the draft that we already have made public line by line. And we will also be hearing about some options for the upcoming Phase 2. We're finally closing in on getting things nailed down in terms of the energy performance contract and all the projects that are happening in front of Phase 2. And so it's time to look at the options. We had kind of a history lesson at the last meeting, and I've reported on that in greater detail. And now we can try and figure out with updated numbers what are some. I think we were going to go for maybe 4 possible options for Phase 2. So that should be very interesting. Please come.
Thank you, Trustee Warner. Are there any other updates? Yes, Trustee Valen?
I don't have formal minutes, but the Governance and Policy Committee recently met. There will be some policies presented to the public at our next meeting on March 28th. Those involve diversity, equity, and inclusion, allocation of Title I Part A funds in the district, gender-neutral single-occupancy bathrooms, and possibly 1 or 2 on community involvement. So check out the agenda for the upcoming meeting, and if anyone has comments on those policies, they should be submitted in writing to the board once they're presented officially in 2 weeks. The other item we've been working on in the committee is updating the task list, which is part of our board monthly, weekly procedures. We're narrowing it down. I'm going to edit some documents and share it with the board. I will commit to doing it within 2 weeks, and once we have agreement from the board on what we want to include or exclude, we will, I guess, do some sort of roll call vote on that. So I hope to have that done by the end of April at the latest. Thank you.
Thank you. And are there any other questions, comments, committee reports? No. Moving on, we have the superintendent's report.
Trustee Mayors, I yield tonight. I knew I had a lot to cover, and so I don't have anything new.
Thank you, Dr. Iverson. I'm going to yield my president's report as well. And do we have an assistant superintendent for curriculum, instruction, and personnel report?
We do. We do. I will try to speak quickly due to the time. So, number of announcements that I'd like to share with the community at large. First and foremost, I'm not sure if congratulations goes to our own Trustee Washington or her son for his hard work. I do want to recognize that at the Section 1 Bowling Championships, our own Jaden Washington, who is Trustee Washington's son, qualified for the Bowling State Championships by being one of the top 3 bowlers for all 6 games. This is his 3rd time qualifying for states, but his first time as an individual, making him only the 2nd person in Woodlands history to win this and the first ever to qualify for both. During the state championships up in Syracuse, Jaden's 259 was the top 10 score out of 80 all-star, all-section bowlers from all of the sections around the state. His second half 675 series helped bring the Section 1 All-Star team from 7th to 3rd place, earning them a bronze medal. They finished merely 8 points shy of the silver, so we congratulate the team for that. Jaden was unanimously voted for the Section 1 Sportsmanship Award and at the state finals, and our very own Sam Washington was the coach of that all-star team. So congratulations to all of our Washingtons. On another note of congratulations, I'd like to highlight Christy Rella, who is one of our ELA teachers here at Woodlands Middle High School, and of course her very amazing students, Agnesa Rossi and Kristen Luther. They both entered into a contest entered into a writing contest from Lifting Up Westchester Essay Contest, and so they both won first place in that, and they will be receiving a $500 reward, just in the spirit. And of course, when I do want to share. So their task was to make some connections between the misperceptions associated with homelessness and mental health. So I'll just quickly read a snapshot of what they wrote from Agnesa. I believe that although mental illness and homelessness are their own issues, it's common for people to dismiss homelessness as an unresolvable effect for mental illness. This behavior protects a capitalistic system that encourages poverty and exploitation instead of progression and care. Kristen writes, homeless people need to fix their mental instability before being allowed in housing. These are just a few of the misconceptions of homeless individuals. That was in quotes. Mental issues are a major stereotype of homeless people. Often misrepresented and dangerous to society, the homeless community continues to receive backlash and is stereotyped on a day-to-day basis. Part of this is due to the obliviousness of their situations as well as the misunderstandings of their true identities. So thank you, Agnesa, Kristen, under Ms. Rella's instruction for highlighting the importance of finding the value in all of the citizens who we face every single day. On another note, at Woodlands Middle High School, we celebrated Pi Day today. So thank you to Ms. Kelly Gillen, who is the pre-K through 12 instructional coach, for working with the math department to set up some stations whereby students can really immerse themselves into some of the background understanding of what Pi really is, and then of course connecting it to their social and emotional learning, where they identify their worth and their expertise. I do want to highlight that Dr. Iverson and I have been working on a student voice survey, and so we are looking to launch that survey at the end of this month for students in grades 6 through 12. So we will be looking for our students to give us their feedback on their perceptions of their learning experience here in Greenburgh, with the ultimate goal of creating a student advisory. So parents, when you see the notification for that, please make sure that you encourage your students to complete that if they don't complete it during their class time. I've received a couple of emails from our community regarding ALP testing. Just as a friendly reminder, there is now an ALP page as part of the curriculum and instruction section, and so ALP testing will be again at the same time it was last year, which was around middle of the spring. So look for that to be happening at the end of April or early May. If your child is already included in ALP, then there will be no additional rescreening. Students who are new to the district, this is their first year in Greenburgh, will automatically be tested, and parents who have sent me or their principal a request to be rescreened will also be retested. So parents, please make sure, if you have not already done so, you inform me or your child's principal that you would like them rescreened if they were already screened last spring. Apologize, I'll go a little bit more quickly. For parents, as a reminder, our K-3 report cards will be available through the Home Access Center this Friday, so please make sure that you take a look at that. And if you have any challenges with the Home Access Center, as a reminder, you may always reach out to our technology department for assistance with that. Also, as a reminder to the community, please make sure that you pin it on your calendar for this weekend. Fame hits this weekend, and so we start off with a performance this Friday at 7 p.m., followed by a Saturday performance at 5 p.m., culminating with a performance on Sunday at 2 p.m. So we hope that one of those times fits your schedule, and please come out and support our students. Tickets are $10 and may be purchased online. Spring sports practice begins on 3/27. And finally, and certainly last but not least, there is a notice on our website regarding the Seal of Biliteracy. So congratulations again to our 30 students who are close to qualifying for this prestigious recognition on the diploma led by Catherine Adore, our Director of ENL IBM World Languages. And so what we are looking for are volunteers who are proficient in the following languages: Spanish, Mandarin, Portuguese, French, Korean, German, and Haitian Creole. We need your expertise in reviewing their projects that they completed for the Seal of Biliteracy, which would ultimately be one of the steps that they need to take to qualify for that. So please visit our website for that information if you are fluent in one of those languages, and we hope to have you volunteer on our committees. And that is it for the CNI report. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Macaluso. Trustee Valen?
Just two quick things. How many students were candidates for the biliteracy seal?
30.
30, that's fantastic. Okay, and just a note on the sports, the date of the 27th you mentioned is for modified, which is the middle school, and varsity started today, but it was canceled, so tomorrow.
Thank you, Trustee Valen.
Trustee Along?
A question regarding the bilingual. Do the folks that you're searching for that are proficient in a language, do they have to be from families of the district, or can, okay.
No. You do not have to be educators. None of that. Just you have to be fluent in one of those languages.
Any other questions, comments? Dr. Macaluso, I loved your athletic report. I'm wondering, because some of the display cases we have, are you guys working to improve those displays and visible things that you see in the gym athletic area?
I can take a look at that, Trustee Mears. I know what we did work on was making sure that all of our banners that celebrated the past years of success were appropriately remounted once the gym was painted and refurbished. So I will take a look into also refreshing the showcases that are there.
And just to add to that, I have not met with Dr. Macaluso on this, but I have some suggestions around some of the things you and I talked about when we were at games, in terms of improving the aesthetic appearance of our gym that I had not shared with Dr. Macaluso that we're looking into. Trustee Mayers.
Okay, cool. Yeah, because some of the display cases I was looking at have, awards from the 80s and 90s, and so I'm hearing that we have a state level, one is, it's many, because we also had some other groups do very well in previous seasons. I'm wondering if we can get some accolades and awards, kind of like turnover for, I don't know who would do that to keep it updated, but I'm hoping
I have it noted.
like
Yep,
that.
I have it noted, and we will look into that. Thank
Awesome.
you for the suggestion.
And then, listen, can we get some of those writings on homelessness? That sounded really interesting and awesome, and I'm all about mental health, so I would love to read that. In the past, I know our meetings go very long, but in the past we have students come to meetings and we clap for them and we have them read an excerpt of their papers, especially if they won awards. I don't know if we could fit that in because we're still behind on our presentations with Lee of Jackson High School because of the weather a lot of time, but I would love to read some of that. Trustee Washington?
I was talking to President Mayers before, and I'm just wondering, are we able to think outside the box with some of these presentations? So if the ladies wouldn't mind reading their essays and then it became part of our webpage, or Lee of Jackson, they did this wonderful presentation. If Mr. Lewis can go over there and tape it, and then we put it on our webpage and we get to view it, because I don't want it to be as if, I think, were we supposed to see the high school also one day? And it's just I know that the principals and the teachers and staff, they're putting a lot of effort into presenting for us, and the weather has kind of pushed them aside, and then time becomes a problem. So I'm just wondering if they can memorialize what they did, and then we can view it and have it archived on our webpage, so people, if parents want to ever see what's happening at Woodlands or what's happening at Lee of Jackson, they can just press it and see the video. So and then even the ladies read some of their essays on our social media pages, and that really just promotes and brands us as a school district. It's an idea.
I love to think out of the box. I think we have to do that as much as we can, just because of time, for
Because,
sure.
right, because everything is just.
Yeah, it's a hot commodity time. Okay. Any other questions, comments, concerns? No? Assistant Superintendent for Business, Ms. Raymond.
Thank you, Trustee Mears. The bank reconciliation for the month of January 2023, we began the month with $31,555,146.86 and deposited $14,757,735.89. We dispersed $6,077,744.60 in accounts payable and payroll checks, and ended the month with $40,235,138.10. The bids for time and material that go out every year are being advertised as of tomorrow for masonry, asphalt, fencing, grounds maintenance, locksmith, plumbing, sanitation, and tree removal services. As you know, the Highview lead water samples were taken by EnviroScience on Friday, with the results received late yesterday afternoon. The lead levels came back at an acceptable level. The Office of the State Comptroller is still working at the district and is still working on the tax cert reserve, and we have been informed that they will be with us to the end of this year at the least. So they are moving in. The internal auditor has completed most of the risk assessment for this year, and we're just waiting to hear from them so that I can contact Trustee Vallon so that we can have an audit committee meeting to review those results. And our representative from the Child Nutrition Division believes that our district would qualify for the after-school snack program, but there has to be a certain percentage of free and reduced students that participate. What's key here is that we have to make sure that all of our after-school programs qualify. So therefore, we must include all sports and any extracurricular activities along with our after-school programs that are currently operating in our elementary schools and our middle school. The same representative also told us that she felt that we would qualify for the community eligibility for school lunch program. Participation requires that our district has an identified student percentage of at least 40% as of the most recent April 1st. The identified student percentage is the proportion of students who are directly certified for free school meals through means other than a school free and reduced application. So that means that it should be through direct certification, through SNAP, through Medicaid, etc. And any students that are directly certified via an extension, and those students who are that are categorically eligible, for example, if they're homeless, if they're a runaway migrant or a foster child. There's a lot of work that would have to be done to prepare for this application. The annual memo for this program, which it will include the application, will be posted sooner after April 1st, 2023. So we're looking into that. We're going to work with our representative and designate somebody here on staff that will have to coordinate and gather all of that information. That's all I have.
Thank you. Trustee Vallon?
So just to clarify what that means, the community eligibility would mean then that all students in the or would it would be the buildings, or the whole district would be entitled to free and reduced? The whole district. So it might be worth, even though it will be resource heavy to implement, it might be worth doing that? Yes, I'm seeing yeses from the board, at least. Okay.
I agree with you, Trustee
We
Vallon.
can try to work on it. Again, I don't know how much, and I don't know if I have the staffing to do it. I'll try to find somebody, but yes, we plan on working on it. Yes.
Is that something our COSER people can help with?
No.
Okay.
It's all in-house information. So we have some ideas of people that could possibly take that project on.
Okay, thank you.
Trustee Warner?
Okay, so I'm a little less far along than you are, I think. I thought we had received some kind of email that had a listing of the students classified as free and reduced, free lunch, reduced lunch, or other, those that didn't, and it came out at about 50%, which means if we only need 40%, then we're probably good.
Right, but we still have to prove all of our students. So it's not just taking our word that we are 51%, we have to actually go through every student.
And evidence student by
Correct.
student
We have
until you
to
get past the
provide-
40% mark.
We have to provide the evidence, correct.
Got it, thank you.
Okay, and then just to take it a step further, if we can't reach that goal for whatever reason, can we look at, if we have a large, for our concern, we have a large amount of unpaid lunches, breakfast and lunches, and it is a major amount, I mean, thousands, tens of thousands. Can we look at, what does that mean? What are some indicators of that? Is that food insecurity, even though someone may not completely qualify for free and reduced lunch? Does that mean that there are some insecurities going on around with regards to food and paying for food? Is there some issues, just looking at some variables around that and why we would get that high? Maybe, I don't know if you could talk to your counterparts in other districts. Is that a trend? Is that what's happening in other areas, huh?
You mean the outstanding balance that we have?
Right.
No,
Do
that
other
is a
districts-
trend in every school district.
They are having the same
Yes, everybody has this
issues.
problem, correct.
Okay, thank you. Okay, no more questions, comments, and concerns. We can move on. Are there any public comments, Ms. DeFrancesca? All right, no public comments. Then we will be moving on to D1, policy review. Trustees, if you check, I think we have a hard copy in front of us, and if you're online, we have the policy 7133, which is, because I moved it, sorry, education of students in foster care. Trustee Warner.
Okay, so if I look at the second page of this, it says, District Foster Care Liaison. The district will designate an appropriate staff person to act as the district's point of contact for students in foster care. The foster care liaison will not be the same staff person as the McKinney-Vento, that's homeless, liaison unless the McKinney-Vento liaison has sufficient ability to carry out the responsibilities of both roles. So I guess my question is, who's handling this now? Who is acting as our district foster care liaison? What will be happening in the future? Is this one of the things that we reappoint at our July meeting? What does the job description look like?
Thank you, Trustee Warner.
And I'll have Dr. Macaluso confirm, we do have one person in the district who is our McKinney-Vento liaison. This is the second person that is listing that should not be the same person. I don't think we have anyone else working with her, do we?
Right, so if the person qualifies, they could be the same person, but if the person doesn't qualify, so then what are the qualifications?
Do we?
So in Greenberg Central School District currently, our director of PPS serves as the foster care liaison, and our homeless McKinney-Vento liaison is Ms. Kim Johnson, who works closely with my department.
Okay. We have it.
Okay, are there any other questions, feedbacks, concerns about the policy? Because we're at the point now where we would adopt the policy. So why are you saying no? Yes, Trustee
I
Valen?
believe this is the stage where it's presented to the board for discussion and/or amendment, and then later it will be presented to the public, and then after that, it will be where we
Yeah,
vote.
so there's no changes. It goes out now for 30 days to
At the next
public.
meeting, it will go out for 30 days.
Oh, I would think we would put it out now. That's what we were talking about. But okay, so
We can
you're the
discuss
chair. We
offline.
can discuss, yeah, you're the chair of the policy committee.
Yep.
So if you want to hold it.
I've been schooled on this recently, that's why I'm going.
Oh, okay,
Thank
all right. Well, then give me some schooling later. When is our next policy, governance and policy meeting, where we can kind of flesh out that process?
April 24th.
Oh, that's a while away. Okay, so this will be out for the public next meeting, which would be March 28th, right? Or when's our next meeting? 28th. And then, I guess in April, 30 days later, we can talk about, I guess, adopting it. But it's going to be out for approval soon, so no more questions, concern. Okay, we'll move on. Next, we have an anticipated adjournment to executive session. Can I get a motion, please?
I move that we adjourn to executive session to discuss matters that would endanger the safety of the public, the employment history of particular persons, personnel matters and/or employee records, and matters deemed confidential by state or federal law, including seeking advice from counsel.
I second.
It's been properly moved in second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. It's about 9:43 p.m. We do not have an expected return time. We have a lot of items to discuss. Thank you.
Expectation. Always have expectation. And I would just like to say thank you for my Happy Pie Day bag. That was a very nice treat.
Good evening. It's 12:29 a.m. Are we on? I'm sorry. We were having our Tuesday, March 14, 2023 meeting. It's 12:29 a.m., so it's now March 15th, and we are resuming ourselves into open session. First item on our agenda is, if I can turn my agenda here.
Personal instructional.
Thank you. Personnel instructional. Can I get a motion, please?
I move that we approve the instructional personnel items presented to the board for approval this evening.
Second.
It's been properly moved in second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Personnel non-instructional items. Can I get a motion?
I move that we approve the non-instructional personnel items presented to the board for approval this evening.
Second.
It's been properly moved in second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Number 3, board action items. Can I get a motion?
I move that we approve the board action items presented to the board for approval this evening.
Second.
It's been properly moved in second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Pupil personnel services items.
I move that we approve the pupil personnel services items presented to the board for approval this evening.
Second.
It's been properly moved in second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. We did item G, personnel tenure, earlier in the evening. Next, we have items, excuse me, gotta find the right page. We have items to approve for the next meeting, which is not public. However, the board does have access to it, so I'm going to go through that quickly. It's item L, review agenda items for the next meeting. L1, any questions?
L2, L3, L4, L5. I did have a question about L5, but the business official is not here.
Send those figures home in the update.
I did not see them, but I will,
They went home and did her weekly update if you check.
I'll review. Thank
I know
you.
that's what you wanted.
L6, L7, L8, L9, L10. Yes?
Question on L9. There was language submitted by another board member. I thought it was appropriate. I liked it. Is that what we're planning to use? Do we have to do anything to make that happen, or is it just going to drop into place automatically?
So we did get legal counsel reply to that, and I will forward you guys that message. It was yesterday or today, Monday or Tuesday. I will forward that to you guys and Dr. Iverson so that that resolution can be used. But we did get some, I think this is the one. There were two different resolutions.
Wise way, yes.
Yes, no, but there were two different resolutions that were in question.
And thank you, Chris, for your efforts.
Okay, so I will forward it to you guys, and then that way you will have the full resolution with the whereas, be it resolved. That's what you're talking about? That one? Yeah. Okay. Yes, no more question? Okay. L10, L11, L12, L13, L14, L15, L16, L17, yes.
Just a question on the transportation the transportation part of the proposal. It says, and maybe I'm looking at the wrong document now that yeah. It says, for this particular provider, that transportation pickup and drop-off would be provided by the district. Students picked up and dropped off at Highview and Bailey. Does this mean that they'll be picked up and dropped off from Jackson and taken to those schools? Or does this mean they'll be picked up from their homes, brought to Jackson, and later brought to the schools?
Because it's before care, so parents would drop them off in the morning. And 6:30 was. Sorry. No, this is before, no, we aren't providing transportation from the home to before care. This is why it's before care, for parents to get to work. So they bring their own children to the site.
Okay.
And then we transport them from the site, Jackson, to their school.
Okay, and then pickup would be
The same.
parents' pickup?
Parent pickup, yes.
They're just brought from the schools
Back
to the
Jackson,
program?
right.
Okay.
So they'll go back to Jackson in the afternoon, and they're there till 6 or 7, whatever time, and parents after work come pick them up.
Thank you.
So we do provide transportation to their sites from the before and after care program.
So I had some concern. I think the contract's actually too high. From my really rough addition, it's over $1,000 a month. If it were before and after for 5 days, please double check that, but I think that's asking a lot. You know, we have town camps that are less than $1,000 for 6 weeks of full-day camp. But, you know, it's probably going to pass, so parents can utilize the program if they'd like, but I will probably have some concern.
And it's up to how many days or what parents decide to do, you know. Some.
Definitely. Okay, L18, L19.
I have a question.
Yes?
19.
19?
And it's more of a request if someone could help me understand the stipulation between now and the next meeting so I get a grasp of what it's more about. I read through it, but
What's the question?
it's if someone can help me understand it before the next meeting, this stipulation, because there's a lot of legalese in the middle of it. So
Okay. Okay. L20?
Yep. Just looking, sorry, just looking again at the services agreement. versus the wording in the proposed resolution. The proposed resolution talks about 6 consultation services for a specific thing. And I believe when I look at the agreement, it's actually 6 consultation service days, which for me makes a big difference. It's not services for specific students or something. It sounds more like training and consultation days, which for me fits more with the amount being asked for approval. So if I'm interpreting what this is, Dr. Iverson, if you can confirm this is training for various staff in this area, then I just request that our district clerk change or that you propose, however needs to happen, that we change the wording of the resolution just to make it clear that it's not, that it's days or training days or something like that.
Next is L21. L20, no? Okay. Next to closing items. M1, any new business? Hearing none. We'll go to M2 for adjournment. All those in, can I get a motion?
I move that we adjourn this meeting.
It's been properly moved in second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Great. Motion carries. Meetings adjourned 12:38 a.m.